Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We're going to try to make this a bullet round since we talked way too long on the backstage.
Yes.
Way too long. So we will try to make this
About
as
spinning
Almost
balls.
3 hours, right?
about spinning balls. Yes, planetary spinning balls. Who's got the most nuts? Apparently Saturn. At least in our solar system. I'd be eager to know who has the most spinning balls in the galaxy. But anyway, we're going to jump straight into this, even though I am your host, High Inquisitor Doman, and we have High Inquisitor Sage and I guess not High Inquisitor Sage, just Inquisitor Sage. There's only one High Inquisitor Sage here, and I am not high as in drugs. Inquisitor Rotomatus. You might as well go with Rotom. Be a Pokemon.
Because I'm spinning in place so fast, you can't even see it.
Okay,
Damn.
okay, Flash. And Superman.
Well, the frame
whichever
rate's
one.
not high enough to.
Yeah, you're like
actually
glitching, like the frame rate. Anyway, we're being weird. I am wired, and the other two are here. So we're gonna jump in while we have time for everyone's attention. So, the first favorite thingest everestest. Geralt's voice actor has a clear message for all those complaining about Ciri as the protagonist. If you think it's woke, read the dang books. Now,
It is somewhat
Okay.
correct.
he is correct, but also incorrect because he's missing the target. So, only the first two books of the Witcher series are valid. Everything else is a mistake.
Sure. I
So-
haven't read most of them, so.
You only need to read
I
the
can
first two.
probably-
That's all you need to do. The first two are the short stories. Everything else becomes full-length novels.
I think the issue is less that it's in the books, Ciri sure is the protagonist. It's more so that in the games they all center around Geralt. So obviously,
Well,
the
it's because
next one
Geralt
is
is the Witcher.
the Witcher. Wow.
Zavicha. Okay, the German man.
Well, again,
Zavicha.
The game makers
Witcher,
made
I think is the
like,
actual original.
made what they made. I mean,
It's Polish, but whatever. No, like in terms of, I agree and disagree. I also like him as Geralt. He does a fantastic Geralt. I agree that she isn't woke, and I'm really I'm
Yep.
really resenting that term now.
Well, she's not woke in the books.
That's what I'm saying.
No, but like the idea of having Ciri as the
The
protagonist. is
character
not
of
woke.
Ciri
That's
is not woke. The misuse of Ciri in video games is a different story. But the character herself is not woke, despite being a temporary lesbian. For a single soul
Temporary
person, in the book, she gets with a girl
Oh.
for a little bit, and the girl ceases to exist, and so she no longer is interested in girls.
okay.
So yeah,
Sure.
everyone's like, she's a lesbian. I'm like, no, she's not a lesbian.
But then was she ever?
She had a particular romantic feeling towards a particular woman who was about
Right.
her age that saved her from a bad situation.
So it's
The-
Stockholm syndrome. Sort of.
Maybe, but I mean, she was never a bad person, so she didn't like
Okay,
kidnap or
fair enough.
anything.
So maybe it's like the bridge suspension effect.
I don't know what that is, but sure, we'll go with that. It's more or less somebody helped you out in a situation and you become attracted to them, and then you do lots of bad stuff with them, and it's okay because you like them. That kind of thing. Anyway, point being, I'm not going to spoil the series, but again, I don't.
Sure.
I don't.
Regardless, though,
There's way too
having
many
Ciri
books
as the
about a
protagonist
pointless
is not
storyline. The first two books are all that matter. Anyway, he's like, if you think it's woke, read the books. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know anybody complaining about Ciri being a main character.
Mhm.
Everybody loves Ciri from Witcher 3. Everybody. She is a favorite. She's got a great personality. She's got
Well,
a
there might
cool
be like a few
composition.
people sort of hiding in the
That-
shadows saying, "Oh, I hate
Like I
Ciri."
said, nobody.
You
Nobody.
need to remember
Okay.
that it was a TV show people and the future Witcher games people like weren't the same people who did the original games. Apparently,
Yeah.
they're the ones.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
people
most
making
it's
Witcher 4
different.
are not the people who made Witcher 3. So therefore, it's not the same company. It's not the
it's a
same game.
woke group of morons, basically. Making
Whether they're
Witcher.
woke or not is irrelevant. I'm just irritated by the word woke now.
Okay,
But
but you've
basically-
used it like a lot.
I have in the past. I have tried to avoid it in the future. So
That's fair.
I've been using it a lot less because it's changed its meaning even in the time
Mhm.
period in which we've used it.
No, it hasn't.
It
changed
is
its
getting a
meaning.
bit unprecise.
No, it has
no.
because it used to be about a particular set of attributes, and now it's gone well beyond the attributes, and now it's being used for things that aren't actually applicable to those attributes. Baldur's Gate 3 is not woke, for one. So
Therefore, you
Not
wouldn't
by
use
the
the
old
word woke to
definition,
describe
at
it.
least.
no. People are saying Baldur's Gate 3 is woke. It's
Yeah,
not.
people
It is not.
People say a lot of
That's
things. I mean,
so
I
by the-
know, and
the
I
old
disagree with them
definition
because
we were used to, right? It's not.
uh,
But the new
just because
definition,
people say
I don't know
something
what the new definition
doesn't
is
mean
because
you
they
stop
don't
using
use it.
The new
Yeah,
definition
I
is-
don't
it doesn't really
need to
matter
use the
to me.
term woke to describe poor characterization and poor character growth and
Mhm.
bad plot lines. I don't. Woke does
Because
not have to be a
that's-
part of that.
yeah.
And that's more or less what this is. There could be a reason they're doing it. It could be for woke intentions. I think they're just bad writers. But
Could be
That's
both.
fair.
it could be. It could very
It
well
all
be.
is woke.
But I know for one is for sure they're bad writers. The second part of being woke, I don't know. So I will presume they're just bad writers, and that's all that's necessary for it to be. But I don't know who complained to him that Ciri's woke. But the problem people have with Ciri in Witcher 4 is the fact that it's called The Witcher 4. Ciri is not canonically a Witcher. She has never become a Witcher. She was trained martially by the Witchers, but she is not canonically a Witcher.
Yes.
Her being the main lead in a book called The Witcher, which The Witcher means Geralt, and Geralt is not, as far as I'm aware, he's not even in it. But if he is in it, he's not a main character in terms of like you actually play him. Therefore, it's not about The Witcher. So
I mean, it's more so that the video game series is disconnected from the books in that it's a separate thing, right? It's
I
still
mean,
in the same universe.
it's got some
sure,
similarities.
but the video games were always about Geralt.
Yes. Well, it's
So
about The
suddenly-
Witcher, and The Witcher happened
Yeah,
to be Geralt.
No, but like the books have sort of a more of an ensemble cast, you could say.
Well, yes, but the main character is always Geralt.
But yeah, okay, fair.
No, because that's the main. There's multiple main characters
No. The
In the books,
main
maybe.
character.
in the books.
There's Dandelions along for the
I
ride
can
in a
agree
lot of
that
them.
there are more main characters in the books, but
There's
in the
difference
video
between
game,
the main
it has
character.
always been just Geralt.
There's a difference
Because
between.
you are playing Geralt.
Well, hold up, Sage. There's a difference between the main character and a side main character. A side main character, is somebody
The
you come.
Witcher books are more like the Lord of the Rings, in that it's an ensemble of main characters.
Don't insult Lord of the Rings like that, please. That's
Again,
that's heresy.
You're an ad hominem attack on my argument.
I didn't
Witcher-
ad hominem them.
The Witcher, as written, is more like the Lord of the Rings, in that you have a ensemble main cast than say Wheel
say
of Time.
closer to
You have
Wheel of
like
Time.
you have one main character.
There is not one main character in Wheel of Time. There's three.
There's one. It's Rand.
There's three.
It's one.
That's
It's
right.
Rand.
No, he's the head of the three.
No.
And thus he is the main character.
But they're all main characters because they all have main plot storylines that all interact with each other
Well,
pretty much equally.
All center around Rand. Without Rand, it's irrelevant.
Well, Rand's the center of the plot. He's not necessarily the only main character. Nynaeve is not a main character. Egwene is not a main character. None of the Aes Sedais are main characters.
Everything Perrin and Matt did could have been done by someone else. Rand could only do the things. Rand
Except
did.
that the wheel didn't, or the pattern didn't allow that. But yes, hypothetically speaking, if the pattern did, they could have. They didn't, so they don't. Rand could have been somebody else, like Bob.
Rand can't be someone else.
Rand could literally be Bob with loose
Right,
in
but
his
the
head.
story
so-
is about
But he's still the
Rand.
dragon, no matter what.
Well, yes, but he's Bob, not Rand. Therefore, anybody else could have done it. Just with
No,
a different
only the
person.
dragon can be the dragon.
I know, but the dragon is not a person's name. The dragon is a title.
No, the dragon is the
It's
soul
not
spun,
really
spun
it's
out by the
complicated.
creator.
Yeah, and the
It's not
soul
Space
spun out by the creator could have actually been called Bob instead of Rand. It's not Rand.
Doesn't matter what you call him. Only that character can fulfill that role.
And without Perrin and Matt, he could not have fulfilled his role. Period.
Right,
Or-
but that makes them side support characters.
But they're not side support characters. They've been there from the very beginning, and everything
Yeah, I
they
get
do
that.
So is Moraine.
intertwines with him. Well, Moraine's
Moraine.
missing for a huge
But
chunk
the
of the
story
series.
is not about Perrin and Matt. It's about Rand overcoming the Dark One.
I would say I see that a bit more intricately than probably you do, but that's fine.
I mean,
It's the
sure,
same
but
thing with
like in
Star
Lord
Wars.
of the
Luke-
Rings,
the main
right?
character of the original trilogy.
No, Anakin is the main character. What's wrong with
No,
you?
he's the main character of the prequel trilogy.
Yes, but if it wasn't for the sequel trilogies, they wouldn't be there. The trilogies.
Right, but with
Everything
Lord of
else-
the Rings, right, there is no main character because it's about the struggle
No, it's Frodo.
between good and evil.
Obviously, it's Frodo. Everybody else is side characters. Because Frodo has to defeat the evil.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
I said he's supposed to. I didn't say he did. I said he's supposed to.
Right, but
He technically fails. But I'm saying he goes to this.
character.
He goes to the
Tolkien
same.
himself says that Samwise is the closest thing to the main character there is.
Yes, but he wasn't the main character with like the focus being on him.
No, because there
or
is
with
no
him.
main character.
Anytime we're going to Sam and Frodo, Frodo is the main person of that line. Sam interacts a lot,
Except when Frodo is unconscious and Sam is designed,
which is not extremely large amounts of the series. In any shape or
for the
form.
pivotal moment when Sam has to resist the temptation
Yes,
of winning.
it is a pivotal moment. I am not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that happens how many times in 3 books? AKA 1 book, but 3 books, 3 parts. That happens
Again,
once.
Frodo-
One
Frodo-
time.
Frodo and Sam are also only. I mean, whatever. Okay, you're trying to find a way to put your notion of The Witcher on the author's written work.
I would base The Witcher closer in terms of an ensemble cast, closer to Wheel of Time than I would Lord of the Rings, but that's a different story.
Right, Witcher is ensemble cast, books. But the video game is Geralt main character.
But that's my point, is that an ensemble cast, you can have as many people you want in the cast. There can still be a single sole main character. Or there can be a group of main characters. Like, for example, if you have a mercenary group that is based around the leader, but the main guys are always in it, and every action and interaction you do with them are constantly doing the same thing, guess what? They can all be main characters. They may not be important to the plot the same way, but they are expressly the main characters. Like, every time Moraine goes on and on about the 3 boys from Women's Field, it's always the 3. Is the dragon technically more important via the prophecy? Sure. Is the story technically need all 3 to be important? Yes, because without Perrin fighting Slayer could have killed Rand in the process of the Dark One, and then everything collapses.
Or the wheel could have spun a different character up to do it.
Just because it can spin something up does not mean it's guaranteed success. That's the whole point. They still have a part to play. They still have to play that role. If you do not play that role, you cannot
But
fulfill
other
the
characters
function.
could have played that role.
But not at the time in which it is needed. If Rand is what is needed, but Rand does not play his role, is he going to succeed? No, he will fail by default. He still has to go about getting the manpower, controlling his portion of the world, going and planning,
He
strategizing.
has to go about being the main character, yeah.
He has to go about being the main dragon because he's the only dragon. But the prophecies don't come into play with that. Like, everything that Perrin and Matt does in the series, like Matt getting his own guys, developing research and stuff for warfare, and also bringing in the relations between the Shan through Tuon and everything.
Okay.
All of their actions combined is the bastion to which Rand can actually pull his part. He cannot pull his part otherwise. Somebody else could come in, sure, but they still have to play their part, just like Matt and just like Perrin. So the 3 main characters
coming for Rand.
But he's not guaranteed success.
That's irrelevant.
No, that's extremely relevant. Just because he's not replaceable doesn't mean he can win.
Again, being the main character doesn't mean you win.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you're the only sole main character.
It does when winning is defined by what you do.
He didn't really technically do anything. He just convinced the Dark One to shove off. But yeah.
That seems like doing something, right?
I mean, not really. It's more like they had a philosophical battle rather than a physical one. But
They had a metaphysical battle, yes.
Regardless, though, I think it's I mean, woke, sure, it's not.
Yeah,
but
Geralt is the main character of the Witcher books, and you cannot convince me otherwise because it's literally about Geralt the entire time. They do shift a lot to Ciri's perspective, so you can see what's going on with
in the
Ciri
book, right?
in the later books. The first 2 books, Ciri's not in there.
Yeah.
But
in the book, therefore, it is an ensemble cast, even if Geralt is the main character.
like Triss and
in the
Yennefer
video
are not
games,
main characters.
you are always looking from Geralt's perspective, except for like
there's a
two
couple random
minor
times.
scenes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
there's,
but
there's
that's
a couple, but yeah, I would agree with you. That's what makes you the main character in a video game is the person you're playing the most.
But you play Siri sometimes, sure, I agree.
Yes, but that's
only
an
in regard to
explanation of
the
her position.
flashback
Yeah,
scene.
yeah. Well, it's a flashback and stuff, but you're not playing the game as Siri. You're playing an instance of Siri's experiences to understand as the player what's happening in the story. It's an explanation of the story essentially. So Siri's not a main character, but she is a character that is valuable.
Not a logical step in the video game series.
Well, it would be if it
Even
wasn't called The
though-
Witcher 4.
Sure.
This is where I kind of like.
Maybe
I
if
think
it
it's
is called
misunderstanding
The
this.
Witcher.
Well, that's a marketing
Siri.
thing, though. I mean,
or something.
I know,
They
but
called it-
you could say you could call it
they call it the Siri one. Who's gonna buy it?
no, not nobody's that
The
stupid.
Siri.
The Siri one. Well, all the Apple people would buy it. But no, if you have something like
No, you can still keep the Witcher title.
well, I'm
just
trying
have
to
it
think of what
be
I'm trying to remember
not
a title or a nickname they called her, Lady of Time or something. I call it Lady of Time, a Witcher universe production or something, like something in the Witcher universe, but is not the Witcher, because in the Witcher 4 they're painting her as she went through the trials of grass, she got the whole
Yeah,
process,
so-
she survived, she's a full-blown Witcher,
Oh, it
her
has
eyes change, everything. Like, that's completely non-canonical. That does not exist in the books.
It has a stupid title. We all agree on that. Okay.
Yes,
It should be like the Witcher 4 series story.
but it's not just the title. They literally made her an actual Witcher.
I think it should not have the 4 if they do that.
Like, she's like 10 times, if not hundreds of times, if not thousands of times more powerful than a Witcher. They're like, but no, she must be a Witcher because
Yeah,
she's
no, I get
better
that.
than men.
But-
And it's
They
like,
made a
what?
stupid decision.
A hypothetical Siri
She made a
sequel
decision.
could work. Just call it The Witcher something Siri, right?
I'd call it The
Yeah.
Witcher's daughter.
The Witcher series.
The Witcher's
series
daughter
two.
would have been fine because you have Geralt, the Witcher, and she's his daughter.
I got it, guys. The Witcher 4 series 2.
Well, I mean, she
But
is
also,
powerful.
making Siri a Witcher is a mistake. That's true.
Yeah, well, it's literally in the books. It states that like Yennefer gets ridiculously mad, or is it? It was either Triss. I think it might have been Triss. It might have been Triss.
And I think it's Yennefer.
Well, it's Yennefer or Triss, but I think it's Triss at that particular time. There was multiple times, but one of the two women, because they both get mad at him at different points, but one of the two women gets mad at him for the concept of her going through the trial of grass is because the rate of success for women was 0% and the rate for boys was like 10% or 20%, something like that. It's a very, very low number of success, and both Geralt and the woman both agree they would not risk her dying for her to go through the process. But then we find
And
out
also,
later
she doesn't need it.
she doesn't need it because she's already freaking powerful. She can go through time. Welcome to the Elder Blood. Like, she's way over the top. Like, she could obliterate the snot out of Geralt if she wanted to. She doesn't want to, therefore it doesn't happen. But like, the point is that her power level is way over that. So I think what people are misunderstanding, and they're probably presenting this incorrectly to the voice actor for Geralt.
Maybe.
It's not because, well, they're saying, oh, people don't like Siri because she's a girl and she's the main cast. And blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. We don't care if we get to play Siri. I mean, we want to play Geralt. Geralt's who we care about because we've played 3 other games of Geralt. We want Geralt because that's where we're invested.
A Siri sequel is fine. Just don't call it The Witcher 4.
Well, we wouldn't call it The Witcher. You'd call it The Witcher's Daughter or something else. Like, you'd mix some aspect into it. I think The Witcher's Daughter would have been fine. Because
that's a pretty good
makes
title,
sense.
actually.
Yeah,
The Witcher's
it would
Daughter.
make logical sense. Geralt is her father figure. She is the daughter figure. They have a father-daughter relationship. Therefore,
Exactly.
the Witcher's daughter makes perfect sense.
But with The Witcher 4,
but you don't need her
set
to
the
be a Witcher.
expectation You're playing as Geralt in the 4th game because
Yes,
you played in the first as
I don't
Geralt,
even know if
the
he's in
second
it.
as Geralt.
Is the
In
problem?
the 3rd, you played Geralt.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's
Or
Siri.
maybe he dies again.
Okay, that could be.
Yeah, him dying was really lame in the books. Like, that was freaking lame.
Well, because he wanted to end the book series.
No, it was. And then he gets stabbed at the side.
When he died, when he and Yennefer,
When the mob of peasants. Yeah, the mob
they
of
go to
peasants.
heaven. They go to Avalon.
Yeah.
They go to heaven. So
That was gay.
he wanted to end the series, so he killed the characters off.
You can end the series without them being dead. You can say, and they rode off into the sunset. Happily
Well, no, we
ever
gotta
after.
remember the Witcher books are like that dark, that grim dark, one of those grim dark universes.
Sure, but you could say he got a disease and was bedridden and couldn't ever go out and adventure anymore. There you go. Or you
like-
could say he
it's
fought
like,
a big evil boss and didn't make it. Like, there's a lot of ways. But getting stabbed by a peasant is the lamest thing you could possibly come up
It's
with.
like
No, it was multiple peasants.
Did anyone ever watch
Either
24?
way. A long time ago.
Yeah, so Jack dies at the end of his run on 24. If you don't know that, Jack,
24 what?
spoilers. Yeah, one of the best TV shows of all time.
Jack Bauer.
Jack Bauer.
Hmm.
It basically, the premise of the show was there are 24 episodes per season and it occurs in real time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you like it, Sage. But that's spoilers for it. I'm sorry, for the 30-year-old TV show. But at the end of Jack's run, because there's one season after Jack dies. Okay.
So think of it
And-
this way: you have basically a secret super agent that is going around. Well, I mean, it's no super agent; he doesn't have super powers, but he's very smart. He's deadly with a weapon, and he goes around trying to save the world or save America, I guess.
yeah, and it's a grim dark universe. Well, crap
And
that
what's this
happened.
called?
So
24.
it makes sense that
Just look up
chapter-
24 TV series.
24.
Okay, cool.
It makes sense that he would die at the end because it's a grim dark TV show.
It's
You know?
Kiefer Sutherland, by the way. But yeah, like I think somebody mispresented this to him and got an incorrect response because Data put in, Data put out.
You mean the voice actor?
Yeah, because he's saying to all those complaining about Sirius the protagonist, no one's complaining that she's the protagonist, and just as being a protagonist. People are saying she's not the Witcher, and they're like, "Well, we gave her Witcher powers. That doesn't make you the Witcher. The Witcher is Geralt, and therefore everything else is irrelevant." So
Okay, so this guy's name is Doug Cockle.
yeah, he's a fantastic voice actor. I love him as Geralt.
Yeah, but is he a woke lefty?
I don't even care. I think he's being fed incorrect information. Hey, everybody's complaining that Ciri's gonna be the next protagonist. And it's like, no, everyone's complaining that you put the wrong protagonist to the wrong game. Like, if you put her in The Witcher's Daughter, as like not a Witcher 4, but like a brand new Witcher's Daughter thing, nobody cares. Now, what we will care is whether or not you continually make her a Witcher, because she's not a Witcher. The books explicitly state that they would not put her through that. Plus, you have to go through the trial of grasses when you're younger. You can't do it when you're older. She was already full-grown adult before this would have happened. Therefore, it would have killed her regardless, 100%.
What if she travels back in time to do it to her younger self?
She would not be able to do that, as far as I'm aware. And if she did, that could risk her dying,
That's
because
fair.
it would still have really. I think it was like a 98% chance she would die.
How do time travel paradoxes work again in The Witcher?
I don't think they really cover that.
Okay.
Because every time she comes back, from what I recall, and it's been a hot minute, but from what I recall, every time she comes back, and actually, these are the ones that matter, by the way. So we
Okay.
got Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. These are the audiobooks, so if you want those, I got them. But these are a compilation of short story. Wow, I just totally out of focus. These are a
Yep.
compilation of short story of Geralt's adventures. This is like when he actually fights things. It's like he goes in, fights the supernatural Striga, or what are the guys starts with an L, the deer-looking guys?
Leshy.
Yeah,
Leshen?
the Leshen. So like when he fights those guys, that's what those are about. When you get past the first two books, they become like an actual story, and that's where I feel like the author's kind of drops off, because he stops making Geralt about fighting bad things like a Witcher, and he becomes more of a political creature, and I don't like that. But yeah,
Again, to your taste. I mean, you're perfectly.
well,
fine.
I know, but I'm saying like the story writing, the writing style changes, and it
Mhm.
becomes more clunky and unkempt. It's not as good of writing as the first two, and the first two are interesting. The last ones are not so much. But again,
I think I've only
could-
read the first maybe 3.
yeah, like before he actually like cashes in for Ciri, it's all fine. Everything after Ciri comes into the picture, he stops hunting monsters more or less. He just becomes like a full-time dad, and it's a weird way to tell the story of a Witcher, because you don't need to be a Witcher in order to do that story. You could literally be anybody else. Just be a powerful warrior, bam, you have the series. It could have literally been called anything but The Witcher, and it would have been a totally different series, and probably would have not been horrible, but it was still kind of lame. But either way, I think it's like the claims about people complaining about Ciri are incorrect. It's not because you're playing Ciri. I think people like playing Ciri because everyone likes Ciri. I don't know anybody who's complaining about Ciri from Witcher 3.
We won't know if Witcher 4 Ciri is woke or not till we get Witcher 4.
That's true.
Or until they release another series, TV show of Witcher. But yeah.
Well, the TV show is crap, so let's forget that.
Yeah, the TV show is irrelevant to the video game.
Thank God for that. But they're
And
not.
then the interesting thing is-
They cannot peak higher than Witcher 3. They don't have. They don't have the story team or anybody from Witcher 3 working on Witcher 4.
Yeah, that seems.
They're making another one, which I did cover that that game.
You mean the team?
Yeah, the team that left that worked on Witcher 3.
Something Dawnwalker.
So
Blood of Dawnwalker. Yes, Blood of Dawnwalker.
I read something like a year ago.
That is on my high expectancy list.
The creator of the Witcher novels is working with him on the Witcher games to some extent now, because he wants to write novels that occur after his previous novels, and he doesn't want them to conflict with the games.
I don't like the author, so I don't even care if his participation is there.
I'm relaying information. So.
I know. I appreciate the relaying of the information. I'm just stating,
does that mean
he doesn't understand it as it is because he's okay with them apparently making her a Witcher, which is canon breaking. But yeah, that's a different story.
Well, it's his canon, so I don't really care.
It's corrupted work by definition. Then, like it literally cannot be canon by him breaking his own canon.
Unless he changes his canon.
How do you change your canon from 100% success rate negative? So in other words, you die guaranteed just by being a girl through the trials of grasses to somehow she survives.
A reprint
one of the gods
the original book.
Yeah, that's also called terrible writing. But yeah.
In your opinion?
No, that's literally terrible writing across the standard of writing practices.
Again, that's your opinion.
It's not an opinion.
I'm not saying it's your opinion because it's not objective.
It is. Objectively contradicting yourself and pulling in a lazy reason is literally objectively bad writing.
In your opinion.
No, in factuality.
So prove it with a scientific experiment.
We did.
No, you didn't.
Yes. When you have books that people read and people like the story or dislike the story based upon a sequence of events of what leads to something else, how it was told, the method in which the reader can understand it and comprehend it, and they put out an expectation of this is what I think the series is going to go, this is what blah, 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 whatever, and they either come out satisfied or not satisfied, and then they give explanations and reasons as to why they are not.
The sign of satisfaction for a product like this is sales. If the sales are up, it's
that is absolutely false. Everybody,
so
there's
do you have any idea how many copies Last of Us Part 2 sold compared to the satisfaction rate?
Compared to the people who complained about it, yes.
The satisfaction rate of The Last of Us Part 2 was minuscule compared to the purchase rate.
To the people who complained about it.
No. We're just talking about people who didn't like it. Period. People unilaterally hate that game.
How many people did they poll to get that game? To get the answer?
You didn't have to poll the game. You literally just go on YouTube and watch people react as they break
so
their
all
discs.
5 people on YouTube didn't like it?
No. Yeah, 5 people. I
so
wish it was
all
200
people.
No,
on
but
YouTube?
see, the problem here is a lot of people just don't talk about the games they play.
Correct.
So
actually, that's not true. People who play games are typically really.
But you're saying that there were tens of millions.
We don't know
how many copies
if
did Last
there
of Us
were a
Part 2
bunch
sell?
of people that played.
I don't know, but I know the return rate. They actually literally changed the return rate policy at GameStop because of that game.
That does sound bad, but yeah, I don't think we have specific numbers on that. It's very likely that it's
So according to Grok or
very low.
Melina,
10 million sales in just 2 years.
So you're saying there are 10 million YouTube videos where people say it's up?
I
For your point to be true,
never said that.
There have to be 10 million. All 10 million of those people would have to go on YouTube and say it's up.
I said the people who purchased the game versus the people who liked the game.
Right.
So if you have people buying 10 million copies, but then trying to return 8 million copies,
Were 8 million tried to return?
I'm not. I didn't say that word. I said in a situation in which it was 8 million.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
Would you call it a satisfying success? Success
No.
financially,
you have no evidence,
or
so you're making hypothetical.
GameStop changed their freaking return policy because people were trying to return too many copies. Then you go on freaking sites where people are selling the copies and they're dirt freaking cheap because nobody will buy them.
So again,
And we're not
10
talking
million
a couple
copies,
hundred copies. We're talking
all 10 million
thousands
copies
upon
happened to.
thousands of copies on just
Again.
single sites.
All 10 million copies happened to.
I don't know. I didn't keep track of 10 million copies. What kind
Because
of
for you-
expectation
for you to-
is that?
For you to that's a scientific standard.
That's not a scientific standard. That's a non-scientific standard because you're
taking a
creating an incorrect premise to claim
you're
it's a
taking
scientific thing.
tiny sample pool of complainers for a game. I personally think Last of Us 2 sucked. I agree with you. I think Last of Us 1 sucked as well, but that's a different.
There's a very small portion of the population that happens to also conveniently align with a particular population that coincides with a particular ideology that likes it. Everybody else doesn't like it because they recognize it was just bad storytelling, let alone there wasn't much story to it because you were pretty much railroaded the entire thing. You couldn't
10
do
million
much.
people played the
Railroading
game,
is not necessarily opposed to story.
No, I'm saying from what I understand, because I own the first one, I never played it, but the first one you had a little bit more freedom. The second one they forced you to do stuff. You had to play as Abby.
In the first game.
I didn't play it. I said, as I understand, comparative to the second one, there's more freedom in the first one than there is in the second.
The game literally ends with the
have
end
to
of
play
humanity,
as
so there's no
Joel.
freedom there.
I'm not talking where the plot goes, Matt. I'm saying specifically the ability to move around and do things in the area is limited in 2 more than it is in 1. I didn't say 1 was free. I said it was limited. But it was limited less than 2 because 2 you kept doing things you didn't want to do. People complained about playing as Abby. They didn't want to play as Abby because they didn't want to play as Joel's killer.
I agree with you that the game sucked. I'm not going to argue that.
I'm saying how it sucked was mostly
but
cinematics and mostly railroading you. You couldn't do much.
My and your personal opinions. Now, if you want to get an objective standard, you'd have to pull a sampling rate. You have to sample.
Somebody out there will say that the sample size is too small and make it invalid and void, and therefore, no matter how many times you poll people, it will just do the same thing.
Large enough if it's the entire population.
Exactly,
Well,
and that never has happened to literally any sample size.
So Steam has statistics, and Steam has fairly high sample rates. So
yes, but Steam also
but
was
mostly
not the primary.
You want more than half for this type of thing.
There's no way you're going to get 5 million people sample size.
You probably have to do at least, I would say, 200,000 or 300,000.
You're not getting that many people for sample size.
Well,
you would not pull 10,000 people for this.
For a 10 million sales, you would like
what you would like versus what you realistically get. I'm saying you might want a whole lot. You might want 10 million. You might want 5 million. You want 300,000. You're getting less than 10,000, if that.
The issue with this particular situation is that regardless of your sampling rate, the people that respond to such calls for sample, right? I don't know what you call it. If you do a survey somewhere,
poll.
The people that respond to those generally are the people that would have been vocal about it anyway.
Yeah. So you're
missing, regardless of your method, almost always the silent majority.
I would say the success of Last of Us Part 2 in sales is due to the fact that everyone liked the first game, 1.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true.
And 2, it has been anticipated for a long time.
But we cannot with certainty say anything about the satisfaction rates.
Well, they're not making a third one. And he said it specifically because of how he ended the second one. So we're not getting a third one. And so Naughty Dog would not take a successful franchise and then just continue on with it or discontinue a successful one.
It was not good, but we don't know for sure. Because
again, that's
the amount when it first came out, the amount of YouTube reviews or reactions, it was pretty atrocious. People were clearly upset about it. And again, if GameStop goes out of its way to change its return policy,
that seems like the biggest factor in.
That screams to me that people were not happy with the game. Like once Joel gets clipped, people are like, "No, I'm returning this game."
I mean,
Yeah.
granted, you make again. We both agree the game was a bad game. Okay,
Mhm.
and we both see that thing that happened, but you can't extrapolate from that to say that the game is objectively bad. Like for example, we may dislike the game simply because they killed Joel because oh, it's a great game. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people who do that, right? So
See, another example of where this doesn't quite work is the Nintendo situation, right?
Which
We had
Nintendo situation was
video
it?
after video about the pricing on the Switch too being too high, everyone being angry, etc.
Uh-huh.
And yet it immediately sold out.
Well, yes, there's more normies than there are gamers.
Exactly, but that's the point.
That's not success.
No, but it is.
But it's not.
It's
Because
sold out.
yeah, you sold the system.
That's
Sure.
a success.
Sure, you sold the system. Well, also there could be a lot of scalpers out there, but you sold the system.
Okay, that's true.
You
But
sold the
like-
system.
Mhm.
That's fine. But if you sell a system and you don't sell games, doesn't matter.
Sure.
It literally doesn't matter because games are where you make your money. And Japan, of all places, you'd think would know this because when they make anime, they give the anime away for practically free because they make the money off the
idea here
merchandise.
is that the vocal YouTube scene does not necessarily reflect
Hardcore
how the
Nintendo
regular
actual channels
people-
are upset about this. Like they're actively talking against Nintendo.
They're
And this is
actively
the
talking against
fanboys and the shills are actively
and
talking
yet
against it. Uh-huh.
it's still sold out.
Yes, because there's always going to be a larger majority of people who don't know or
Exactly.
care
So we
about anything
don't
in the
know
process.
how big this group of people that didn't care was with Last of Us Part 2.
More than people who do because they bought it.
Sure.
But I'm going off of actual evidence I personally have seen. I can't go dig for
Yeah,
that.
no,
That
but
was
this
years
is the
ago.
problem with statistics, right? You can't
There's a
really
lot of
say
problems with
too
statistics.
much.
But-
That's true.
Point being, things like that, I would say, didn't go well according to how they were. You don't take a highly successful and extremely hyped up game and end the series with it. From a reasonable, logical perspective, you do not do that because you can go make more money.
Mhm.
And obviously,
Well, I guess you could do it if you had, when you started the series, a specific story in mind, and the ending is just a satisfying ending to end on.
it was not a satisfying ending, even from their
No,
own
no, but
perspective.
I know it's not the case for Last of Us, but say, for example, well, I guess Mass Effect is a bad example too. But at least a new Mass Effect would not make sense because, of course, the original story is already finished.
But not if you continue it from another perspective.
Yeah, but then it would be a new series.
A series? Or are we talking about Mass Effect or Witcher?
Well, both.
Yeah, because you totally put them in the same sentence. Okay, so if we're talking about Mass Effect,
So
you wouldn't play Commander Shepard, but you could play another
Yeah,
commander
yeah, I
in
get that.
whatever the
Like-
Federation or whatever.
the Mass Effect trilogy is done. That's the original series.
I thought they were making it. They're making another one.
Yeah, but that one isn't Mass Effect's original. That's a different story.
Well, there's 1, 2, 3, and Andromeda.
Yeah, but Andromeda is not a story that is connected to the original, aside from the fact that at some point some people fled. That's it.
I haven't played them yet. I have them, but I haven't played them yet. I have too many games to play.
So the story in Mass Effect 1, 2, 3 is done.
Well, that particular storyline of that universe, sure.
Yeah. So
So you could not
that's
say
a
Mass Effect
satisfying
5 and then
ish
be
ending. You can't do Mass Effect 5 and have it be like, oh yeah, Shepard is alive again. It's
well, yeah, but I'm saying to make Mass Effect 5, you don't need to use Shepard. You can use
no,
another
but it would
Shepard-like
be a new
character.
story, right? It's essentially a different series of
No,
games set
not-
in the same universe.
You could technically bring in some of the surviving characters from the first original 4 and
Sure.
have them enter in a different doorway. And basically, you have your two plot lines. One gets cut off, but then some of the parts, cut and slide
But it
over
would
into the
still
other.
be a new story.
Maybe, but they let's say hypothetically, because I don't know, I haven't played it. Let's say hypothetically, Shepard is trying to beat this boss, but he doesn't make it, and the game ends. That boss is still out there, so they send in another person, but they're like, we're gonna bring in some veterans that were already in the fight against this
yeah, but
person,
that's
and then
not
they
what
bring in
happened,
other
right?
characters. I'm not saying it's what happened. I'm not saying it's what's not going to happen.
It would be
I'm
like
saying
having
that's the
having a
same
sequel to
storyline, but
Lord
with
of the
different
Rings,
character.
Return of the King.
It's what?
It would be like having a sequel to Lord of the Rings 3, The Return of the King. It doesn't make sense because the story is finished.
Was the story wrapped up with no enemies?
Yes.
Okay. Could there be enemies they didn't know about that arise at
Sure,
the same
then
point?
that would be a new story.
I'm not saying the story would necessarily be the same. I'm saying if there was something, because again, I don't know the story, so I don't know. I'm just saying if there was a line, like parallel lines, where they like, we're going to start this one here. This one's been going on for this long of a time, but then we're going to have the characters from this story integrate, the ones that survived, integrate into this one, so you have familiar characters to kind of
Sure. But
balance
then it
you.
would still be a separate story.
But if there was more beyond what that story is, like if they said, oh, this is cut off, it was finished, but then we find out in this story that actually it wasn't finished. There was another part of this particular story that came out from it. In other words, somehow Palpatine returned, kind of a thing.
Right, but that is a
Which is why
stupid way to do
Tolkien-
things.
I'm not saying it's not a stupid way, but it's just your opinion. But I'm not saying it's a stupid way to do things. I'm saying that's a way you could continue the story with a different
which is
character and
why
have it still be
Tolkien-
similar.
Canceled his Lord of the Rings sequel he was messing around with because it was potentially about okay, spoilers for Lord of the Rings, guys. Spoilers. Sauron does not actually die at the end of Lord of the Rings. He becomes a formless, shapeless wrath who we know by the saying will eventually come back, and we know that.
Sure.
So,
Somehow Sauron has returned.
No, at the very least, he comes
Question is,
back
will
to
he
the
come
battle at
back
the end of time.
before the last battle?
Yeah, so the question is, yeah. So Tolkien was messing around with a Fourth Age story where Sauron reemerges, but then decided that he didn't want to go that direction.
I think it would be more interesting to see if one of Sauron's accomplices popped his head up and started stirring up some trouble. But again,
they should all be dead by because the ring wraiths can't survive without the One Ring.
yeah, but I'm saying like it could have been Balrogs that reemerged.
There may be more Balrogs down there somewhere.
Maybe a Balrogs and some other dragons appear. I freaking know. I from what I understand, Smaug was the last dragon, but
last greater dragon.
I don't think so.
Okay, you don't think so?
There are like greater.
He
like
was just the last one that was sort of in the area.
No, he's the last greater like sapiens one.
Yeah, I
there
think the rest were just like oversized serpents, essentially.
No. So okay, there's two.
Those are also dragons.
At the highest level,
but they weren't
lore,
sentient. That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Fair.
They're not
Lord of the Rings
Balrog
and
and
Hobbit.
Calagon, etc.
So Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit are the highest level of the lore, right? So anything else we have to consider is secondary to that. So Smaug in the highest level of the lore is the last giant sapiens dragon. Okay, he came down from the north where all the dragons had retreated at the end of the first age.
Right? Is he a great green dragon or a green great dragon?
Now
He's not green.
in the
Right.
secondary
That's a Tolkien
lore,
joke, which if you were a fan, you would know. You freaking poser.
in the secondary lore, okay, there are some versions where there are other dragons like Smaug still out there, and there are other versions where there are like giant animal dragons who will be like the dragons from the Middle Ages and stuff like that. St. George and the Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah. So those creatures lasted longer, were eventually hunted down by humans over time. So, but again, that's the secondary lore is obviously not developed like Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, for example. So that's why you have to weigh your answer with that sort of thing. Now, as to Sauron's minions that could have survived, the Balrog was never his minion. There's a whole fan theory that the entire Hobbit, by the way, the entire Hobbit was actually Gandalf doing a hit job on Smaug, and the entire Lord of the Rings Gandalf doing a hit job on the Balrog with the One Ring as a side benefit because he did not want Sauron to have Smaug or the Balrog on his side.
Well, I think the whole point with Smaug is that he was trying to get Smaug on his side, and that got interrupted by the Hobbit.
Kind of.
The Necromancer was trying to ally with Smaug because Smaug was powerful enough not to be pulled in by just his will alone.
Well, no, he was. Sauron would dominate Smaug as well.
Wasn't the idea?
No, I'm saying that's the whole thing. He didn't go to him and propose an alliance by sheer force of will. He went to him to propose it.
Wasn't
as an
the
ally.
quests in part motivated by the idea of preventing.
Maybe Gandalf
them to
was. I
work
don't think the
together.
dwarfs had any care about
No,
that.
the dwarves, sure, they didn't know, but Gandalf.
Gandalf would have been the
agreed.
only one. Gandalf
Well, that's
may
the
have
whole-
used them to get rid of
If you
Smaug, so
read-
it helps that
Yeah.
problem.
If you read
But-
the Quest for Eregion in Unfinished Tales, it reads like Gandalf uses the dwarves to take out Smaug. And
It's such a
you know,
conniving jerk sometimes.
just like Gandalf used like Gandalf was even though he was saying, "Oh, Moria's horrible," blah blah blah.
I mean, Moria
he
was
really-
pretty horrible. but
he
that's
really
the
wants them to go to Moria so he could take out the Balrog. Like I said, it's a secondary.
Well, see, I feel like if he had gotten Smaug taken care of and everything in the dwarves area was stabilized, then having them go after Moria would have been more logical. But that I
Sure.
don't think
Well,
works
again,
the same way.
secondary canon, right?
But
Maybe
speaking, but speaking of, you know,
Because there are only two options to take out. There are only really 2 or 3 options to take out that Balrog. Well, maybe 4 if you count Elrond and Galadriel.
Yeah, you could.
Glorfindel's around.
Glorfindel, yeah.
Glorfindel's around.
Well, yeah.
Although people argue whether he's the same Glorfindel. I'm like, yes, he's the same Glorfindel.
Well, he
Anyway.
is the same Glorfindel, but he's enhanced.
All right,
he,
so
he's
like
even
in
better
Istari,
than
he came back to enhanced.
he's faster, stronger. Yeah. I know you guys probably don't play Stellar Blade because I don't think you're
No.
PS5 people, but it's coming to PC.
Okay. Cool.
Unfortunately, it's coming to PC with Denuvo.
Wait. So better with Denuvo than without? How does
Yeah.
that work?
They claim it. Now, here's the thing. It's okay. Let me pull it up so I can actually control it. The devs of Stellar Blade are claiming this. Now, my thoughts on this is because we have a little bit of a history with the devs. So the reason, like, when yes, because when the game came out, they had outfits that became "quote unquote" censored.
Okay.
Do you remember that the controversy?
Vaguely.
Okay, so there were outfits that were censored. While yes, some of them seem to appear have been censored, actually some of them seem to be altered because his wife's actually the one who designed them.
Mhm.
And his wife used real life designs to design them.
Okay.
But you can't say you took somebody else's designs through a form of plagiarism.
Oh, that's true. Copyright issues, I guess.
You get sued out of the wazoo. So what they said is, oh, well, we had some prototypes, and then we kind of found out that they were a little too close. So we just altered them a little bit. So people thought it was Sony censoring them, which may have been the case because Sony doesn't want to get a lawsuit and lose lots of money. But
Mhm.
it also could have been Sony was, very censorious, but they weren't censorious about a lot of the super kind of hotter outfits. Like the outfits were pretty spicy to some of them. Other ones, like you could be wearing a giant teddy bear outfit, not particularly
Okay.
censorious
I guess
necessary.
that could be interesting.
It's actually, ironically, one of my favorite outfits for her. But it's just funny being around with this big bear head on your head and a bear onesie, just cut things to pieces. But it's fun. But no, they had some lingerie-ish type ones that you could wear and everything. So it's kind of like, is it really censored or not? And they changed the designs because there are real-life, actual, like one-to-one similar
Okay.
things.
How
So
does that relate to Denuvo?
I'm getting there. I'm talking about with the claims of the devs. So the devs have a history of trying not to be sued, right? Fair enough.
Sure.
It's their first big game, and because after that game dropped, they came out with Nikki, which is the app game that's really popular. I
But
even
that
play
was before, right?
it. Not before they started creating it according to their own.
Okay, maybe they started creating, then they released.
They
and
have
then-
a thing that shows like what got released when and what happens afterwards. And Stellar Blade was first. I think it was in development first, and then they worked on the app game, and then they released the app, and then they released actual Stellar Blade. But they're already talking about a sequel right now. But basically what happened is because of incidences to which they can neither confirm nor deny due to legal problems, they kind of were just like, we're not going to talk about it. And so people thought it was Sony, but it turns out it might not have actually been Sony. It could have just been they had to self-censor in order not to get sued out of oblivion. Now, what this looks like is coping for Sony, because Sony wants to do Denuvo everything. And I can't stand Denuvo, because Denuvo has no place being in a single-player game. I don't know how I need to reiterate this. You can literally not cheat in a single-player game.
No, you can.
No, you can't. You literally
Find
can't. And
someone you want.
here's why. No. You cannot cheat in a game because you are not cheating against someone else.
I don't think that's exactly what cheat mean, but sure, let's go with that.
The traditional cheat versus the actual game cheat concept. So the actual cheat game concept, if I play Age of Empires 2 and I type in all your base are belong to us, I created a cheat, but it pops up in a game. And if I'm not in a multiplayer game, I'm not cheating. I'm changing or enhancing the game experience.
No, you're cheating.
No, because if I want to play the game a different way, I can mod the game, or I could change the game in another way possible that does not involve actual cheats.
But then you're not playing the game as intended.
The game as intended is not necessarily the game provided. The game provided, the intention of how to play is up to the player. Do I want to play Skyrim the normal way where I follow the storyline and ignore all the side stuff? Well, no, that's how it's intended. But guess what? People almost never finish the storyline for Skyrim because they don't care about the storyline. They want to go do stuff they want to do. Then people go mod Skyrim so they can have a custom-made house or a custom-made companion that's fully voiced. That's not cheating, even though they may be more powerful than the other companions. That's not cheating, it's just modding. You're changing the outcome of it. Denuvo is supposed to stop cheating, but cheating does not accomplish anything in a single-player game.
Sure.
All it does is rob you of the original playing experience, but you can remove the cheats, as you want to call them, cheats or mods, to play the game. So
cheats and mods aren't the same thing.
They have the same applicability when it comes to how you experience the game.
So getting shot in the head and bludgeoned with a baseball bat aren't the same thing, but not the same either.
If they both result with your death, it's the same outcome.
The point I'm getting at is when you cheat a game, you're not defeating as intended by the creator.
You are cheating yourself out of the experience. Yes.
Correct. However, when you mod a game, you're saying I don't want to play the original game as intended. Okay, that's a perspective difference.
But if I it's just like your opinion, man. But no, like it's if I type in a cheat to get infinite ammo, I never have to reload, and I shoot a whole bunch of people in like a Doom simulation or something.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Is it cheating?
Yeah, because
who am I robbing?
Okay.
Who am I affecting in the gameplay?
Beat the game as originally as the game is intended.
If I beat the game incorrectly, I'm only denying myself the ability to do so.
You're not,
but if I mod, I do the exact same thing.
Are you doing so in an attempt to beat the game?
The intent is irrelevant. By the creator? The intent is irrelevant. What I want to do in the game is have fun. How I come about having that fun.
So you're modding the game. You're not cheating. You're doing something different.
Well, if Denuvo counts that as cheating, which I think it would consider that as cheating, then I would say it's cheating. By their definition. Not by my definition. You can't cheat in a game where you're the only player. You can make the game stupid easy, sure. You can make it pointless, sure. You can make it not worth your time nor effort, sure. But you can't cheat. Because let's say I go through Doom Eternal or Doom 2016 and I have unlimited ammo, I have unlimited health, unlimited body armor. I'm invulnerable.
So,
no. I'm still going through the stuff. I'm killing things. I'm tearing things apart. I'm blah blah blah.
The game doesn't have infinite ammo and infinite health.
Say again, Sage.
If you do an exam, are you?
The exam actually affects other people, so that's not the same.
Does it?
It does. Because people are going for certain scores for the class or for their school, and that could affect their positioning in a future job, especially in places like Japan. But if you're number one on your list, you're going to get a higher pay and whatever, better than somebody who's number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6.
What if in the process
top of the class matters to some schools? Yes.
What if only the school matters?
If you were the only participant in the school and none of the outcomes actually mattered, then you have an actual analogy. That's not how that works, though.
Well, if in IT, for example, I have to teach myself many different subjects. So if I cheat and don't learn a subject properly, I am not.
You are depriving yourself of the knowledge. Yes,
that's cheating.
So is that
But if you're cheating, that would be like you programming the wrong thing into someone else's product, which means somebody else.
You're trying to change the definition of the word again.
No, I'm saying it's used differently in the real world versus in a video game.
Cheating in context means you're violating the rules of the game as intended.
If I listen to an audiobook on 4 times speed, am I cheating?
Yes.
No.
Depends.
No, I'm not cheating.
Depends.
Did I listen to the book? Yes. Did I complete
But
the book?
did you really?
Yes. Did I do it in a way I can retain all the information? No. But did I read the
But
book?
again,
Yes.
the book is not a competition.
Single player games are not a competition. That's my point.
Yes, they are. You're competing against the creator of the game.
No, because the creator of the game is not in my game.
Yes, he is. He created the game.
No, he didn't. He's not in the game. He created the game
His
to
mind
be
is in that
purchased.
game.
It's not an active. It's a replication, if that, at best.
He created
and that's
a
an analogy.
scenario. He created a scenario for you to compete against.
Yes, and I said I want to find a different way to beat this
So you
scenario
wanna
than what
take
he offered.
His scenario and turn it into fan fiction. and do it a
Because
different
I
way,
can find something fun.
which is fine. There's
No,
nothing
it's
wrong
not,
with it.
because it's cheating, which is not
No,
fine.
it's not cheating.
Cheating has a bad
That's a
connotation.
cheating.
Cheating
I
has
think
a
cheating can
bad
be fun.
connotation to it, so it can't be fine by
No,
definition.
who has a bad connotation? Cheating can be fun.
No, it can't, because it has terrible consequences for it. There are no terrible consequences
No,
for
no,
beating
no,
a single
no,
player
it's
game.
terrible if they catch you.
That's what Denuvo is supposed to do. Denuvo is a fun killer, is the point. Denuvo is, because if Denuvo's not in the game, well, like, there's no online leaderboards. There is nobody's better than you. You're not competing with nobody. You can't win prizes. Nothing is in the game. It's literally, I went into the game, there was things I didn't like, so I wanted to
What
change the
should
outcome.
do when you're in a solo game is just ignore it.
You think I buy a game, I should just not play the game?
No.
Yes.
The game, the
No,
Denuvo,
of course
the AI thing or whatever it's, I don't know.
Killing me, Sauce.
Okay. Whether it's AI or whatever, Denuvo should not be active in a single player version of the game.
Denuvo should be what? Should not be
Not
active?
Should not be in single player games.
Yes, that's what I've just been arguing. I've literally been saying the same thing. You're like, no, it's cheating. No, it's cheating. No, it's cheating.
Yeah, no,
We'll use Sage.
Denuvo being in there is separate from whether or not single player cheating is still cheating.
But what's it compared to? How is it compared as cheating?
Because you're breaking the rules of the game.
Well, logic can break the rules of the game. I don't have to do nothing for that.
You're trying to
if
trying to squirrel out.
For example,
established-
I'll use Doom Eternal as an example. So in Doom Eternal, I have a freaking fixed blade to my arm.
Sure.
And yet I cannot use that without a certain
Mm-hmm.
combination going off first.
Yeah.
That's broken. So if I was to go into that game and say, no, now I can melee whatever the
Well, you-
frick I
you
want
think it's
to,
broken.
that's cheating.
Well, you think it's broken.
It is broken. I have a weapon I can use after I use a certain combination.
Well, then
of
why
whatever
don't
they
you
want me
go
to.
make a version of Doom?
I can't, because there's called copyright, trademark limitations, and
Well,
legality.
make a game called Doomer.
Just call it.
I'll call it
yeah.
Mood. I'll
Well,
call it Mood. But backwards.
Go make a game called Mood, and well, you could use the blade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd have to change a lot more than just the name, but yeah. And,
No,
and if
that's
that was the
probably
case,
fine.
if I could just change whatever I wanted to, then I would never buy your game or anybody else's game because I would just make the game I wanted, and therefore you'd sell a lot less games. And that's
No, 'cause
that's
only
not
you
a
would be doing that.
reasonable response. If I were to use, like, let's say you go to an arcade, right? A 4-player TMNT game, right? That's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for you European weirdos. So,
Sure. By the way, I have to go now.
no, you don't. We
Yeah,
still
I
have
do.
more topics.
I'm not going to be there for them.
He was spitting him out of the screen.
Anyway, have fun with your discussion on semantics, right?
That's what I do.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Sage. I'll see you on Sunday,
Farewell.
assuming that you're there.
Their stage.
Probably, yeah. Until
I
next
don't
week,
want to probably. I want to guaranteed. But we'll talk in Discord later. So anyway,
Yeah,
later.
until then.
So to wrap this up with a bow nicely, which I know is not going to be how this turns out.
Bro,
Well-
our discussions are more interesting than some of the topics.
Oh, I know. I'm a big fan of Stellar Blade, but that Denuvo is, that's a hard turnoff for me, because it's a Sony requirement. It's not a Steam requirement. The devs aren't even requiring it. It's Sony requiring it. And you literally cannot say Denuvo is make something run better, which is what the claim is. But my point with the claim of the devs is that the devs are saying that, I think, because they're trying to appease Sony, because they want that sequel. So it already sold like hotcakes when it first came out. For a first-time studio and a first-time this style of game, it did phenomenal. And it was a phenomenal game. It still is a phenomenal game. It's got 3 story paths, and you got to play the whole game 3 times at least, and do the different options to get the full playthrough. And you also got to find all the individual items and collectibles to get the most out of it, because the second playthrough they become more powerful, so it increases everything and it makes it better, and it's all cool like that. Like, it's a fun thing. Collecting outfits that are hot help as well, but the same outfits get another variation in the second playthrough, so like there's a reason to go through the playthroughs, my point. But nothing in that game that you can do to quote unquote cheat is going to do anything. It will not affect the developers. It will not do a single thing. It won't affect your friends. It won't affect your enemies. It won't do nothing. And that's the argument of Denuvo has no place in single player games. If I want to cheat, I can cheat. If it's cheating through mods or cheating without mods, it's still considered cheating according to the publisher. That's why Denuvo's there.
Okay.
You understand that, at least?
I get what you're saying, okay?
Yeah.
But you don't have to change the definition of cheating to be.
Well, it's an anti-cheat system, so I have to use the term cheat.
Well, yes, but again, I think you should be allowed to cheat at will on single player games.
Yes, that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate thought. Yes.
You should also be allowed to mod them at will.
Yes.
Okay? Those are 2 different things.
I don't know how Denuvo deals with mods.
Probably considers most of them cheats. Okay.
Maybe, but there's
I know, for example, Blizzard
ray tracing mods. I don't know if it considers that cheats, but
like Blizzard used to have like a great policy with mods, and now the morons who have taken over at Microsoft basically.
So would you consider a mod that adds ray tracing to a game that does not have ray tracing cheating? Despite it not being the way that the developer intended.
If it's a single player game, right?
I mean, even if it's multiplayer, it's a non-issue, because it's a weather thing.
Let me finish the answer.
Yeah.
If it's a single player game and it's isolated on my system, and it did not change the experience of the intended gameplay, it's not cheating.
I don't know what the intended experience has to do with literally anything.
Well, in theory, doing ray tracing versus vector graphics, the other way of doing it, could change the way the game looks visually, which could provide an advancement or a disadvantage in playing it. Okay.
Yes, but what does advantage or disadvantage have to do with your enjoyment of a game by how you play it? If it's a single player, of course.
If you enjoy solving the puzzle they give you, to give you an example,
sure,
okay, then you don't want to cheat. You want to beat their puzzle. Like, well, I can beat a Rubik's Cube every single time by pulling it apart and putting it back together solid. I've technically solved it by doing that.
Okay. But here's the thing, like put it Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. Both of them have puzzles in their dungeon type things, right? So you go to the dungeon place, there's a puzzle, you got to use your little wibbly wobbly stuff, control things and whatever, and you solve puzzles. That's what you do. Now, I'm not saying this is literally me, but hypothetically, can I, or another version of myself, want to play the game because I like everything about the game, but I don't like that function, and I don't enjoy the puzzles? Can I mod or quote unquote cheat to make it so I bypass those things?
Okay. If you want to play the game as originally intended to you,
nobody goes into a game playing it as intended, with the intention of playing it as intended by the dev.
I never.
You don't. I'm not saying you cheat. I'm saying you don't buy a game and say, "Oh, I'm going to play this just like the developer wanted me to." Nobody does that.
When I buy video games, I have two sets of playing them. One is I put on the hardest mode possible and play it that way, with no cheating, no nothing.
Sure.
That's one set of enjoyment.
Some games don't have hard difficulties anymore, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Being the game as intended, meaning I'm not going to cheat, I'm not going to mod, I'm going to put the settings to max, and You know, like Golden.
What if it's a mod that makes the game even harder?
I won't do that either.
Because you even if you enjoyed your hard experience, you would not make it even harder.
No. I'm not enjoying the hard experience. I'm enjoying playing the game as they intended.
That's a strange way to look at it, but okay.
That's when someone presents a challenge to you, do you want to beat their challenge or change it to something else?
Yeah, and I'm saying you beat the challenge. Congratulations. Do you want to make it harder? Do you want to make it more of a challenge?
But then once I do that, it's not the same challenge.
Technically speaking, it is.
No, it's not.
More difficult.
It's not.
It is the same mechanics and sword
It's
flows.
not the same mechanics.
Bouncing around, like nothing else has changed. It's literally just
once you
now have harder things to do.
Add a mod in that changes the mechanics. It's not the same mechanics.
How is it changing the mechanics? All you're doing is
what
making
else does a mod do besides change the mechanics?
I'm saying how you swing a sword or man a gun or what armor you wear or don't wear, none of that has changed. All that has changed is that it's more difficult. So enemies are tougher. What?
If nothing changed, the mod did nothing. It didn't get harder.
No. The mechanics didn't change. Like, how you swing a sword does not get modified. How you shoot a gun does not get modified by the enemies. Like, for example, if you have a game like Dark Souls where have you played any of the Dark Souls games?
Okay. We're speaking of purposes here. When I say mechanics, I mean the physics and coding in the game. I don't mean how it looks.
I'm not talking necessarily how it looks. I'm talking how the game plays.
Well, I'm saying when I say the mechanics, I mean the physics and coding of the game.
Okay.
I don't mean.
Well, answer me the question. Have you ever played a Dark Souls game, whether it be Elden Ring or otherwise?
I played Dark Souls. I didn't like it, but I played it.
Okay. I didn't particularly care for it myself either because the setup
is too repetitive.
Well, there's that, but it's a setup to fail, and I'm not particularly fond of that. But Stellar Blade is a Dark Souls light-esque type thing. Like it has similar stuff, but it's actually fun in my opinion. It has actual good dodges. It has actual good attacks and stuff. But anyway, so in a Dark Souls game, it's hard, but you learn the patterns of your enemies. You die a lot. Like the whole purpose is you die. That's Dark Souls. So in that situation, you learn the patterns, even of the super hard, like crazy difficult bosses, right? So you beat the game, and you're like, man, I want to play that again. So what you do is in the game, you mod it, and you mod it so that your enemies do not have that pattern. They're random now.
Then to me,
that makes
a different game.
It contains all the same lore, all the same weapons, all the same placings. The controls are all the same. Nothing has changed except the pattern.
But it doesn't play the same.
Why wouldn't it?
Because it's harder.
Well, yeah, that's what hard difficulty's for. Hard difficulty is
a
hard difficulty versus medium difficulty change the entire game?
You're not understanding what I'm saying. When I play a game, for example, the original version of I play, let's say I got GoldenEye, a good example of GoldenEye, okay?
Okay, I remember GoldenEye.
And first I played on easy just to learn how to use the controller. Mm-hmm. Then I jacked it all the way up to hard.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. People thought it was crazy.
I mean that's pretty normal. I did that for Halo all the time.
So just bear with me, okay? The version of the game I'm playing is the version they gave to me to beat. How they intended it.
Easy or hard?
Meaning I didn't alter the gameplay that they intended.
The gameplay doesn't get altered by difficulty scaling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but in other words, it does in terms of like it's easier to kill guys on the easier ones. But
yes, but that's a scaling of difficulty.
It's the point. It's the gameplay they intended. Okay, so I'm beating their intention.
Why do you care about the intention of a developer? The developer's not in the room with you. They're not chatting with you. They're not having a cup of tea, and you're having crumpets.
This is pure biology now. Your competitive sense.
I don't know if I want to know about that.
is based on competing with other people. It's in your primate brain.
Well, when you're playing multiplayer on GoldenEye, there's people to play with.
Now, even when you're playing single player, it's the same instinct.
I'm not competing with anybody.
You're competing with the person who made the game.
No, I'm not.
That person's daring you to beat their game.
The person who made the game might not even be able to beat their own game.
That's irrelevant. He's daring you to beat
Then you're not competing with them because by definition you can beat it and they can't. That means they're not competing with you.
You're competing against his game.
Okay.
He's saying, "You motherfucker, you can't possibly beat my game." And you're saying, "Well, it's down, bro. I'm gonna beat your game."
Sure. And if you find that fun, go for it. And if you
And
don't find that fun,
the-
then go
that's
for it.
good. So we agree with that, right? Now,
Yeah, I
if
play
you
games to have fun. I don't play
if you
games
try
to
to
care about a
beat
dev's
his
opinion.
game, right? If you try to do that same thing, but you cheat to do it, you put a code in to give you infinite ammo, and you do it to beat their intended version of the game, that's cheating.
But what if I'm not doing it to beat the game and I'm just doing it to enjoy the story?
But if you want to shake their game and mod it to make it somewhat different, so you have a different experience of it, that's modding, and that's perfectly fine.
But that's cheating by your own definition.
No, it's not, because you're not playing to beat the original version of the game.
I don't know anybody who plays games to beat, besides you, play
games
to beat devs.
So you know all 8 billion gamers or whatever?
There are not 8 billion gamers, dude. There's not even 8 billion people on the planet.
Whatever. So you will know all 647 million
I don't need to
gamers?
know. That's a non sequitur. I don't need to know everybody. I'm saying the people
you're
I have not seen anybody go, yeah, when I play video games, I play to beat the devs. Nobody besides you do that.
I've seen hundreds of people in real life do that.
Now, maybe they do it without saying it. Maybe that's their intention. Maybe they're just like, I just want to beat this game.
Literally,
sure, that's fine.
When we played video games in the 80s and 90s, we would say, I'm going to beat this motherfucker's game. No, I'm going to beat this motherfucker's game. And then we would go, let's put money on it. Who's going to beat his game faster? We put money on it.
Yeah, and if you put money on it, you should not mod it or cheat. Sure. Now,
again,
here's the other thing. What if all of you come together and say, we're all going to make the game more difficult, and then do it? Sure.
You're going away from the topic.
No,
point is, we're competing to beat the developer or the creator's version of the game. We're not competing to against each other per se. We're seeing who could beat him better. We're not going head to head.
Unless you have a timer, you don't have a way to do that.
We're not playing head to head like where we're doing like a Street Fighter or whatever.
Yeah.
We're playing, let's say, pinball, right?
That's
who can get the higher score in pinball?
So that's what I'm saying, is you can still do that. The devs not have to be in that entire thing whatsoever. You don't have to bring the dev into it at all. You could say, we have one pinball machine, 4 people playing, right? So they're going to have one person play pinball, they're going to go, and then they get knocked out. And then the next person gets on it, goes and plays, gets knocked out, blah, 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 blah. But if somebody comes in and says, all right, now that we've all done this, let's all up the ante. Let's add things to the pinball machine to make it more difficult or more of a challenge for more fun.
So you get a different game out of it.
It's still a pinball machine. And it does all the other... No, it's still technically physically the same pinball machine with additions.
It's not, because the game plays differently.
And it doesn't matter if it is. It literally doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because the dev's input is irrelevant.
To you, but not to most people.
No, I'm saying if I choose to do something with my game that I purchased from them...
Okay, if the dev's input is irrelevant, how do you play the game? It doesn't exist.
The dev's input is the person physically coming into my house and telling me how to play the game. That's the dev's input.
No, the dev's input is creating the game.
They create a game. I break the game by playing it and beating it.
So you beat them.
Well, I didn't beat them. I beat their game. They're not their creation. I didn't go into their house, punch them, and say, I beat your game.
Anything you create is a subset of you.
I would disagree, but I would also disagree that just because you make something, that means you created something. But that's a different story with the more philosophical undertones. But my point is that if I do anything, if I go to Skyrim and I mod a base building system to where I can build my house anywhere in the game, that does not need the input of the dev. Not the coding.
Okay.
The coding's irrelevant. You're referring probably to the coding. I don't care about the coding aspect. I'm talking about if the dev says you're not allowed to do this, he can shove off. His thoughts are completely irrelevant to me because he's not going to control my game.
So you're not playing his game anymore.
I'm still playing Skyrim. It's still
Skyrim. You're
Skyrim.
not playing the game he gave you. You're playing your version of Skyrim.
He didn't give it to me. He sold it to me.
So you're playing your version of Skyrim.
I'm playing a version of Skyrim.
Your version.
It's not necessarily my version because I didn't necessarily make the mod.
Did you install it?
I didn't necessarily install the additional mods in the same order or function as somebody else.
Did you?
I have no ownership over the mods whatsoever.
Did Did you change? Did you put the instead of put the settings from the mod in?
Did I put the what?
Mods have settings. Did you set the settings?
Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on the mod. Not all mods do that.
So then you're either playing your version or someone else's version. You're not playing the developer's version.
But if I'm playing the devs version, I'm playing somebody else's version.
You're playing the developer is technically someone else, and you are correct. You are correcting it.
Yes. And I came to play a game. I did not come to play person's game. I came to I don't go to your house, Matt, and say I want to play your game. And mean that I want to play the game you created. I want to play the game that you own. You have, I don't know, Tetris or something at your house, whatever game you have that you enjoy playing or something, and I come over and say, oh man, I want to play your game. I'm not saying literally I want to play your save file. I'm not saying I want to play literally the game that you created.
Would be my response. Do you want to play one of my saves, or do you want to start your own game?
Yeah, I would never dishonor somebody by playing their save file.
Why not? We're not trying to please. That people all the time.
I have respect for gamers, good sir.
I have, for example, in Skyrim, I think I had like 600 saves. So my cousin would call over and pick them up at various points and just check the game out.
Possibly. Now, you could argue also in Skyrim that they intend for you to play a thief pattern, a wizard pattern, or a mage pattern, I guess, or a warrior pattern, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe a ranger as well.
Like,
whatever the main things are. But they did not inherently intend for you to play a warrior, mage, ranger, sneak build. The options are there, but that's not intended to play.
And when you do that,
you're not playing the game the way they intended.
So you're playing a different game.
But I played everything they coded the way they coded without any input from outside forces. Everything comes from the game files themselves.
So you beat them.
Did I beat them by just becoming the character? Or did I beat them by beating the game?
You beat them by defeating the game puzzle they put in front of you.
So I can literally beat the game by walking into the game and just I win?
If that's a qualifier.
I don't know what qualifies is because
if you play a game called I Win,
what you were proposing,
a game where you could win by typing I Win, then yes, that's true.
I have never considered in the history of my gaming life, which is literally like 32 years of my life. I'm not that old yet. I feel that old, but I'm not that old yet. In 32 gaming years of my life,
I have games older than you.
You are also older than me, good sir. That checks out. But my point is, also, the length of gaming technically doesn't matter in that comparison because there are people younger than me that are better than me at games, so it's irrelevant.
That's always true.
So, in 32 years of gaming, never once have I said, man, I'm going to show that dev he can't make a game I can't beat. That's never been a thing in my mind. And the people I gamed with growing up, the people I go to game stores and talk to, none of them would come up with that concept.
And that's what, 200 people?
Probably more than that because I've been to a few game stores.
400 people?
But even if that was the case, I can't find forums of this. I don't find anything. I see people always talk about, man, I can't wait to beat that game. I can't wait to beat that game. But it's I can't wait to beat that game so I can show that peasant dev how to play.
Gaming over my 51 years, people all the time would talk about stuff like that.
You would talk about beating the game, sure, but nobody's going, I'm going to show that filthy dev. Nobody does that. At least now, I've never heard a forum, or I've never seen a forum post, heard somebody utter that on YouTube, utter that in a private chat, like what I'm doing with you. Technically, it's a private chat. You're the only person I've ever heard say that. Doesn't mean necessarily that other people don't say it.
You haven't talked to enough people my age then.
Well, maybe the 200 people that you talk to need to meet the 200 people I've talked to because your position is unheard of on the internet that I can find. I don't see any forum posts. I don't see YouTube videos, anything like that about it. There could be. I could totally be wrong. I'm accepting of that. I will say, however, that is not the majority opinion. Now, I have personal friends that want to play the game vanilla style and beat it without any mods, any cheats, or anything like that. Sure. But you can create lots of interesting encounters. Like, for example, Age of Empires 2, when you have machine gun Cobra vehicles that go super fast and can mow down large amounts of medieval characters, it's fun. So you do it because it's fun. It's
Can be.
nonsensical. There's no logic behind it. It's just funny. The
But
game
it's a
devs
different fun.
put the cheats in the game.
It's a different fun than being the game as originally intended to be played.
That's subjective, good sir.
Of course, it's subjective.
Yes, that's not a different fun. You can find the same fun in both situations. That's not
It's
a different fun.
fun.
No. Because one I can find joy in, the other one I can also find joy in. That means it's the same outcome, therefore they're the same thing.
But it's a different experience.
Well, sure, the experience could be different, but what's the difference of experience? I'm beating both games and I'm having fun. That's the same experience. How I go about that is irrelevant.
One you beat it a certain way, the other one you beat another way.
Well, sure, but I can do that the same way without doing cheats or mods.
So have you ever done a maze puzzle?
Define a maze puzzle. There's lots.
You
of
got a maze on
puzzles.
a piece of paper. You have to trace the route through it.
Yes.
So
they only
if
ever
maze
have
has,
one freaking thing because they're not very.
Well, no,
fun.
that's a living experience. I used to do mazes with 20 or 30. They're just like there are crosswords, there are depths to maze puzzle.
I find them boring, but sure.
Our brains work differently.
That is definitely true. No true words have been spoken.
I think visually. So if
I mean I do too, but that's
I got a maze puzzle, I had to find to get satisfaction. I had to find every path through it.
I mean, I just want to find a path through it.
But you just said so. We did the same thing. You said
no, because you cheated. You played the game as the devs did not intend.
If there are 5 paths through there.
Yeah, there's 5 paths. They only intend for you to find one path, good sir.
It didn't say that on my paper.
It didn't say I couldn't enjoy the game as a mage, fighter, warrior, ranger either.
It doesn't say you could enjoy it, but
just because something doesn't say something does not mean that's an argument in favor of the opposite. That's not how that works.
No, just because. Okay, so you keep trying to say, okay, cheating refers to being the game as the developer presents it. Modding is changing a game to enjoy it differently.
So cheating can be modding, and modding can be cheating.
They can't be. Philosophically, they're mutually exclusive concepts.
Well, no, because I can have the experience be more enjoyable by doing something the dev doesn't want me to do.
Okay, if you gave your wife plastic surgery so she looks like a different woman, is it cheating or modding?
Sorry, my phone decided to go OK Google on me. No, shut up, Google.
Google has an AI now that's going to harass us.
It never hears me when I put it right in front of my face, but I have it sitting at arm's length away, and now it picks up everything I say. But no, like, what about this? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition, right?
I never played that one. I played the first 3, sure. I think.
It's fine. But on Rainbow Road, one of the Rainbow Roads, there's several Rainbow Roads. Excuse me. On one of the Rainbow Roads, you can launch yourself off of an edge and land on a layer that's lower that puts you further along on the path. Is that cheating?
Did the developer put that in there on purpose?
We don't know. It's there. They put it there. Nobody's altered anything.
Then, by definition, it wouldn't be cheating because of the game.
But we don't know if that's what they intended for you to do or not. They probably didn't intend for you to do that. It's just a shortcut somebody found.
Who cares about their intentions?
That's my point. Who cares about their intentions? Their intention's irrelevant to the conversation.
But they gave the game to play a certain way to play it, and that's when
they made a game with limitations, sure, but that's on them and their ability to make a game without limitations.
There's no games without limitations. That doesn't exist.
I mean, Sky's pretty close. You can kind of do whatever you want as long as you know how to mod it. But then again, they don't finish their games either, so I care less about their devs than anybody else in the world because they don't finish their game, so I have no respect for them to begin with.
Okay, well, that's a whole separate blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but my point is that you can't have an anti-cheat on something that literally has no effect whether you do or do not.
I agree with you 100%. On a single-player standalone game.
Yeah, I am totally against cheating in a multiplayer competitive system. Totally.
I'm not against cheating in general, but in certain circumstances.
No. I am, because now you're making it unfair to other people you're competing with and falsely claiming superiority over their skills when you're not utilizing your skills to do so. That's when you're playing against other players in an intended to be competitive environment. Now, if you play GoldenEye, for example, let's go back to GoldenEye. If you play GoldenEye with cheats enabled, but everybody's utilizing cheats because it's allowed to be used, that's fine because everybody agrees to these requirements. Everybody's agreeing to cheat to make the game funnier. Because that's kind of what you do in Time Splitters 3 and Time Splitters 2. They have silliness added to it to make the game enjoyable, which is a totally valid way to do it. I love it. That's why Time Splitters is my favorite. The same guys who made GoldenEye made Time Splitters. So then, if you go to a game like Call of Duty, but somebody's glitching their way from being shot, but then they show up and pop you from across the map with the gun that can't do that, I would say that's wrong. Because you're not playing by yourself. The enjoyment is not limited to you. It's limited to whoever's participating. So if everybody is participating, 16 people or whatever, then it's no longer just you being affected. Somebody else is being affected by your actions. But if a game is only going to be affected by you, for example, let's say I play Dark Souls, one of the games. I think Dark Souls 3 is the hard one or something. But whatever. Let's say I play Dark Souls 3. But it has a story. I don't think it really does. But hypothetically, let's say it has a story. I want to know this. What?
The story in the Dark Souls games is basically grimdark kill stuff. That's all it is.
Yeah, I'm saying that there's not really a story, but hypothetically, let's say there was a very interesting story, and I wanted to know the end of that story. I had to know, and I wanted to experience it, but I didn't like the playing style of the game. So I mod a system that basically I can use to beat the opponents quicker, faster, and easier.
So you played a different version of the game. That's fine.
No. I'm purposely ignoring the fight because I don't care about the fight and I want the story. In that situation, it's not affecting anybody but me. Therefore, I'm not cheating because I'm not competing.
You are correct in that sense, but there's another version of that where you play the game as intended when that would and cheating would
yes, but some games are intended to play a certain way, but they're broad enough to where you could literally never play that way that they intend.
That's a separate issue. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not cheating per se because I can't do anything other than get the enjoyment out of the game that I want. Now, let's say I rob myself of enjoyment by adding mods or cheats that change the game to make it easier, and I beat the game. And I'm like, yeah, and then I realize that was pointless.
Well, you didn't beat
so
the
I
game,
go back, I remove the
game,
cheats, and I remove the mods, and then I go through the process of grinding through it, and I gain that satisfaction that gamers get. Well, then I'm giving myself the satisfaction again. Like it's on me to determine whether or not I enjoy a game. Whether the dev intends it, and I follow whether the devs intends it or not.
Okay.
My enjoyment is on me. It's not on the devs.
That is true. And but
so the dev telling me don't enjoy this the way you want to is stupid.
What dev says that?
For a single player.
What dev says that?
Anybody who puts Denuvo on a freaking single player game.
Forget about Denuvo for a second. We agree on Denuvo sucks. We agree with that. Okay.
I mean, there have been devs on record. I can't remember what games they were attached to, but there have been games that said, "We want you to play the game the way we want you to play the game," which is not how you make a game. But yeah,
fine. Let's say they did that, right? But let's say you played their game, you beat it, whatever. Then you modded it. So you value added, you made a derivative of that game. So you got fun.
Well, if I made a derivative of the game, they can sue me.
No, they can't if it's in your private home.
I mean, they could sue me without that. They could say you plagiarized my stuff and operated it this way.
No, they can't. Not in your home.
I'm sure if they had enough money, they could do whatever they wanted because that's how
the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. If you're in the privacy of your home, you modify anything you own.
Yeah, but Nintendo has just recently told us we don't own the Nintendo Switch 2.
Well, that's the issue.
Or the Nintendo Switch 1.
Well, my friend, you need to switch to Linux.
Unfortunately, they don't have Nintendo games on Linux because they get sued.
That's the nature of.
That's the nature of the United States having less privacy laws than the freaking Europe. That's embarrassing.
We have more privacy laws in Europe.
No. Because in Europe, you can't get your Switch bricked. They can't touch you. Nothing they can do about it.
In Europe, if the government wants to brick your Switch, they can do it.
No. I'm talking Nintendo. Nintendo cannot brick your Switch in Europe.
The government can.
I mean, the government could shoot you in the head because you sneezed wrong.
No, literally, like
No,
for
literally,
example,
that
for
it's
example, in Europe,
authoritarian
if you're on
hellhole
your
for a reason,
Switch,
dude.
if you're in England and you type on your Switch, you say, trans men are trans women are not women." A British police officer can brick your Switch.
Sure, but they could do that anyway. They could say,
Not in the
"You
U.S.
looked at me
You
funny.
can't do.
I'm gonna break it."
You can't. No, brick it. I said brick it.
Oh well, the bricking is breaking it. It's literally useless once you brick it. So
You
either
can't
way,
do it in the U.S.
that's because we actually value property. We're not communists.
because you have to get a warrant from a judge.
We value
to do it.
property, not privacy.
You have to get a
awkward
you have to get a
conversation.
wiretapping warrant because we have enforced privacy laws here. Okay?
Yeah, because we know the government follows those rules. Sorry, that's a joke. but-
Actually, I mean, as problematic as the government has been, and we both agree with the shit with Biden and all that, people sign the apocalypse all the time, and the U.S. is still the freest, greatest country on the earth, even under fucking Joe Biden's horrible presidency.
Well, here's another one for us.
Yeah, let's get to the next one.
People are review bombing the Borderlands games because Gearbox 2K made EULA changes. Looks like the people review bombing the entire Borderlands series because Gearbox 2K
Okay, so
made EULA changes that could apparently gain root level access to your machine under the guise of anti-cheat software and collect personal info like accounts, passwords, telephone numbers, etc. Excuse me. Now, I've heard a couple people say it doesn't do this, and it's like maybe it doesn't do this, but it gives you access to do this.
root level access is they couldn't do it on a Linux machine or an Apple machine, just to give an example. Windows is more problematic for this shit. You would gain root level access to that user account. You would not gain root level access to the operating system in Windows. Now, who wrote this?
Pirate Nation.
Are they lefty or righty or centrist?
I mean, they just report on what happens,
Well,
but
the issue is the
they're
word
reliable.
Okay,
They're not unreliable.
there's a weighted phrase there. Review bombing. Okay, review bombing is commonly something.
Review bombing is the common term for people hitting somebody's rating really hard after it being another one.
But again, it's a phrasing that is associated with the left, not with
Pirate
the right.
Nation. I don't think is a left, but
Well, that's my
I don't know if
point.
I don't know if they're necessarily right. They're not politically motivated as far as I'm aware. They just talk about stuff. They're like the journalists that we wish we had in regular things.
Yeah. So leftists commonly engage in review bombing, and also whenever people give negative reviews of their products, they call it review bombing.
Yeah, I don't agree with it necessarily being called review bombing because, like, for example, they're review bombing The Last Jedi. They're review bombing. What was the last one? I don't even remember what was the one.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. They're review bombing. It's like, no, they just didn't like it. Like, if you don't like something, it's not review bombing. But they're like, no, if you dislike something, it's review bombing. And it's like, no, it's not review bombing. That's not how that works. If a whole bunch of, like, if you make a film or something, and 2 million people go see it, if 1.7 million of them dislike it and say, I didn't enjoy that, and they all go review it, that's not review bombing. That's 1.7 people being honest about their opinion. Like, that's not how review bombing works. Review bombing as a term is meant to be a negative that implies that, hey, they're doing this out of spite. They're not doing this out of actual concern. Because actual concern states, I don't like this, and it could be my personal taste. It could be I don't like the actor or actress. It could be I don't like the voice actor. It could be I didn't like the modeling. It could be the cinematography was terrible. It could have been the writing was wrong. The plot was terrible. The characters didn't operate within the plot properly, or the actors couldn't portray the character properly, even though they are good actors. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you could go on ad infinitum for virtually any reason you wanted to, and that's not review bombing. It's just a review. Because when is a review bombing? Well, when it's not positive. Is review bombing?
Well, I would say review bombing is a left-associated term, which is, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
So that being said, to the actual content that they're talking about, the EULA changes to Borderlands or whatever.
It's similar to the terms of service changed for the Switch.
Yeah. So, and a lot of games are doing this now and the reason this is coming is because of e-gaming. Okay. Because e-gaming involves money and betting and all that stuff. they have to put anti-cheat software in to make the games
Yeah,
not.
but you can bet literally any game. But most of the I think Borderlands 1 is mostly single player campaign. It has like no multiplayer in it. I think maybe outside of maybe
Yeah, but
co-op.
so there's still gambling. There's gambling on everything. Okay.
Well, yeah, I
And
can gamble about somebody else's dog. Doesn't mean we should freaking handicap the dog.
well, that seems logical, but these companies want to make money. Remember, they're all big companies now. They're not little mom and
Yeah,
pop.
that's the problem. Is they
Right.
stopped being gaming companies and started being profit companies.
Well, that's just the way the world works. If you
And
want
I mean
games,
that in the sense of not communistic. I mean in the sense of they stopped focusing on gaming to make profit instead of focused on profits to make gaming. They lost the plot and switched it up. They said
well, okay.
originally they said when 1 and 2 came out and they were actually focused on making good games, which would make them good money, which I'm totally fine with. I don't mind them making money. But they focused on the game and then they got the byproduct of profit with it. Now they're focusing on profit and gaming is being put as a secondary, which makes the game worse. That's what I mean.
Again, I get what you're saying, and
I did that to mostly clear up with the audience that watches this because
my
I don't
point's a
want them to
little
think that he's
different, okay?
against people making money. I am absolutely
my
not against
point's
that.
a little different. Okay, see these 95% of games that are worth even playing once come from medium to large companies now. Okay,
Yeah.
and these companies want to maximize their revenue streams.
Sure.
And gambling and e-gaming, even for single player gaming, you can still e-game that by having people like compete. Also, streaming, for example, and again, you can have 4 people playing a single player game and competing on stream, so to speak, against each other. Who could beat it faster or whatever? You know,
Sure.
there's money there. Because there's money there, they have to put these anti-cheat things in, or they can be sued for fraud by people who lose money.
Sure. But again,
And
if that's the
unfortunately-
situation in a competitive system, you would make a version of the game with that anti-cheat software put specifically and explicitly into a situation in which that is a gaming or an e-gaming scenario where gambling is taking active place. Nobody would care
See, the thing
because
is,
that's not
they
somebody's
don't wanna-
personal game.
They don't want to make 5 different versions of this software.
It's literally copy paste and then add in the thing you're going to add into the other thing anyway. That's literally that simple. It's two different games.
It's not
versions.
necessarily that simple because of how embedded this stuff is. This is
If,
we're talking coding.
can you embed it into the core game? Yes.
The core game that has 100 million lines of code.
Sure. But they have to put some change in there to put.
You don't
the
you don't
thing
just
in there
write,
to begin
write,
with.
write 4 zeros and it magically works.
No. I'm saying whatever they have to do to put it into the normal game that you and I purchase, they have to do it anyway. So do it to a separate copy, which can literally be copied, literally 1-to-1, to have a digital copy
They
of
just-
both. One be puts on discs, the other one put into an e-thing. They're doing the same work, but they're
Okay,
not
But
interfering with the actual code.
most players aren't even going to care about that. So
Apparently, because I know everybody's screaming about Denuvo because nobody likes it. It's
Again,
terrible.
everyone's not screaming about it. The majority of players are going to play the game if Denuvo is there.
Well, yeah, all the normies, sure, but I'm talking like people
Yeah.
who actually are gamers.
But the money comes from normies, not gamers.
Well, sure. It's easy to hire, or it's easy to entice a whole bunch of people who don't have brain cells.
And this is the point I'm making: is these corporations are there to make money. It's like
But
video.
you make more money by appealing to everyone, not just the normies.
But the normies are the vast majority.
Sure. But the normies also might not care about your game.
But that's where the money is.
Especially
okay?
games that are already released. Normies aren't coming out to play Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2. Nobody's
Maybe
coming out to
they-
buy those except the people who grew up on them, maybe lost
Maybe-
their copy or
maybe-
they lost their account.
Again, we're down to the issue of e-gaming and gambling and stuff.
But again, my point it literally is whatever they have to do with that, they can make a copy that does the exact same thing before they send it out to everybody.
But
They don't
why-
need to
what's-
send it to everybody.
What's their incentive to do that?
There's no incentive to put it on every machine ever.
Again, if you have 2 different versions of the code, you have to go through the testing for 2 different versions of the code.
You're not
Which is-
testing for 2 different versions of the code.
You are.
No. You're testing for one because it's a 1-to-1. It's literally
They're not.
So, okay, let's
All
say
the coding for the security stuff is
Here.
complex. And have you ever been involved in this sort of stuff?
let's.
I've been involved in security coding on servers. I'm trying to explain this real simple. Okay.
Okay, so little thingy here. It's the Skyrim switch thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have this. All the stuff is on this, right? However, like 18 gigs or whatever on this thing, right? So I can take this, make an exact copy of it. And what can I do with the copy after I pull this off of my machine? Whatever I want to. Now, if I take that one copy and I pull this out, it's no longer affected. It's not in the picture. It's totally non-included with the rest of the entirety of this theory or hypothetical situation. I can take that digital version of the exact same thing. It's one-to-one code. It's like dragging and dropping from one file folder to another file folder. I have a copy of it. It's a copy of the original root or whatever the case is. I can now put whatever anti-cheat I want onto that, since it's only going to be used in an e-game scenario. I am particularly making on that digital thing. I'm going to use that digital thing specifically for tournaments or whatever the situation
now you have
is.
two versions of the game. You have to spend.
You don't have two versions of the game.
The security coding is you clearly understand the level of penetration this code is security coding is. For 100 million lines, let's say your version of the game that has no security is 100 million lines of code. There's 10 million more for the security stuff.
Sure, but you know what's not going to happen?
You have to test that version of the game.
E-gaming will not be affected by it.
Wait, I lost audio.
You hear me?
Let me come back in.
I can hear you. He must have lost me. He lost me. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying when I say this, because I understand there are code differences. I understand there are a variety of differences in the coding and whatnot. What I am saying, I'm going to remove this so I don't look freaking small. Wow, that's big and that's bright. Wow. Welcome back.
I know something weird about. I think I know why my audio drops after about 2 hours. So I think the headset. I think the USB dongle and then just be plugged into the actual computer, not to an extension.
Gotcha. What I was explaining,
real simple.
Well, okay. I was explaining to the audience while you were gone, so you had kill the dead space in between, pun intended. Was that the understanding the concept of having software and splitting the software into two? It's the exact same.
Forking, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'm making it easy for the audience, but sure, forking. Let's say you have two copies, and then this one's the one that everybody bought on Steam. It's 20 years old, blah, 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 whatever. Throw it to the side. Now I have this one. I'm like, I'm going to make this exclusive to tournaments because I can confirm that it will not be cheated. Okay. Because whatever tests you got to do on the singular, you have to do on that one.
Right there. The companies don't want to spend the extra money to make two versions of the game.
They are making literally two versions of the game by adding an anti-cheat system to a pre-established game.
And they're erasing the older version of the game on their end.
Yeah, and the older version of the game was already pre-established, was already there.
They're no longer maintaining
was not getting
that
updates,
version of the game.
But it was not getting updates. There's nothing in that game that would do anything. So if you are going to make this exclusively for e-games, which is what you are implying, that they are exclusively because of e-games, that they're adding this anti-cheat system.
E-games, gambling,
yes.
basically making
all that type of stuff. Yes, anything money related is because of an e-game system or something of that ilk.
Yeah, making
but
money.
The point is that if that's the reason, that's the motivation to make this, right? You don't go into a person's home, break everything, put it back together, it's different, and then say, I know your experience is going to be worse now, but it's for the gambling. You don't do that.
I agree that is ethically and morally problematic.
My thing about ethics and morals when it comes to terms of service is you cannot change the terms of service once you release the product. That's it.
Well, but it's a different product.
No. I'm saying like if I have okay, here. It's probably going to pop on. I have my Switch, right? Switch OLED,
yeah.
Right? It's also nice and weighty. It's metal.
Well, you have that Switch is two products. It's the software and the hardware.
Yes, but I'm saying is that I purchased this software, hardware, everything, games, whatever the case might be. I bought this under a particular terms of service. Then they change the terms of service after I have purchased it, and now tell me you can't do what you could do before because we say so now. That's unethical to me.
It's. I would say it's unethical to a point.
I would
I
say
mean-
it's completely unethical to every point because
Well,
the reason
there's the
is
whole like
if
you
I
know.
buy something from you, if I buy a product with the
Okay.
intention
You-
of something, like
you
I'm
bought it
getting-
as a standalone product. I mean, okay.
I did what?
You bought on the old terms of service where it's a completely standalone product.
Sure.
They changed it. They changed the product to no longer be standalone. So there's the ethical problem: is they're fucking you over.
Well, yes, but my point is
And
my point
you
is,
have-
is that if I buy a book, right?
no. I want to finish. The solution in the United States is to then sue them.
I cannot beat Nintendo's lawyers. They have way too much money.
Well, no, you need actually need a
Elon
class
could
action.
sue them, and maybe he'd win.
No, you need a class action.
Yeah, but class action doesn't end usually very well for the amount of money we lose. But
You're not suing for the money. You're suing to get. them
I
to
sue
stop.
for money, not because I need the money. I mean, I do need the money myself.
No,
but-
no. You're
I don't-
suing
I
to
don't-
get them to stop the practice.
Yes, but I want them to hurt for it. I want them to realize that when I do this, I am going to monetarily and financially be bothered. I want
Well,
I
then
want my
That's when you hope for a gigantic punitive damage setting. Like,
well, that's the thing. This is like if I could say that 320 million people in the world joined a class action lawsuit. I wish I could talk. Class action lawsuit. 320 million people signed up on this thing, and the punitive damages was 100 million, or not 100 million, $1 million per person.
Yeah.
That's what I want, because I want Nintendo to suffer $320 million in
Well, you need to
damages
find-
because they are overstepping their bounds because they think they have these rights that don't exist.
Well, you need to find a lawyer to put that together.
I cannot see a single lawyer saying, "Yeah, I want to take on Nintendo's lawyers."
Oh, you'll believe me. There are law firms bigger than Nintendo out there.
Yeah, they work for Elon, which is why Elon needs to spearhead this
No.
or something.
Again, I understand.
The
I
point,
agree
the,
with
my
technically-
point is I want them to stop doing it, but I don't want them to have a chance of starting it to begin with the next time. I don't want there to be a next time. I want to say, if we do this, we're going to get sued and lose half of our profits, and the people who are paying us and our corporation,
Well,
like
to
the
do
people,
that,
shareholders,
you have to
they will
sue
hate
them.
our guts.
Well,
So-
to do that, you have to get a lawsuit. The only option
Yeah.
are a class action or attorney general.
Well,
class.
class actions where they don't have any financial damages, like of a reckoning type, like literally something that could actually hurt the company, possibly even close the company.
Well, no. Okay.
Yes.
No. I could care less about the money, to be honest.
No, I do. Not for me. I care that they lose, not that I gain. I care that they lose
Well,
because
you want them
when
to stop the
when,
practice.
when somebody
class
is
action-
behaving incorrectly, you hit them where it hurts. When you hit them where that hurts, they don't try
But again-
again because it's too
Well, why not?
risky. It's
But
way too
again-
risky. If I said, okay, in the operation of this lawsuit, the damages need to be 50% of all profits they gain every year for 10 years. You bet your bottom freaking dollar they're not doing that again because that's way too
Or
much money they
They'll
lose.
say, "Wait a minute, if we don't do this, if we eliminate this, we'll make less money and won't be able to pay as much." It's a financial incentive. Let's.
Yeah, I want them to financially be incentivized not to do stupid things.
I want them to actually stop doing the stupid thing.
But the only way they understand because they are being greedy.
No.
Is
you
finances.
You can sue to stop them as well.
Yes, but they'll just try to find okay, if I sue to stop Nintendo from being able to sue people like Power World because they're patenting things that they should not be able to
No.
mechanically
You
patent.
would you would say you go in with the class action that says Nintendo is engaging in violating some blah, blah, whatever it is with the DRM. Okay. And the judges,
The patent office is saying you're allowed to patent this thing that you should not be
Well,
allowed to
the
patent.
judge would say, Your Honor, we have a motion that we want you to put a permanent injunction on Nintendo doing this practice, and we want to sue them for $1 billion. That's your lawsuit.
I
okay?
want a patent that prevents Nintendo from patenting anything ever again.
Well, what patents have nothing to do with what we're talking about?
If you're not paying attention to the Power World thing, you need to pay attention to the Power World thing because
No,
the
no,
Power
no.
World thing's a
I
nightmare.
get the Power World thing, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the practice of this DRM thing. Okay?
Yes, the practice of patenting is becoming unethical because you're allowed to do things that you should not be allowed to do to begin with.
Topics.
I mean, it's the same topics, but yeah.
No, it's not, because I'm saying let's say we were lawyers. We get a class action together representing 100 million American who bought Switches, let's say. Okay. We're going to go in there and say, not only do we want $1 billion, we want a permanent injunction on Nintendo from engaging in this particular practice. Okay. So not only do we want money to punish you, we want the practice barred by law on the authority of the federal judge.
Sure, but the federal judge is the one who let all this through to begin with.
The judges do what the law says, for the most part.
For the most part. That's not inspired confidence in me. It's slightest.
Whole separate thing. Okay.
I'm saying that when somebody files for a patent for something that should be universal and not be specific, like if you want to patent your design, your specific design of a Pokemon, sure, knock yourself out. I get that. But if you're trying to say that anything that looks even remotely similar, like we made a squirrel Pokemon, again, any squirrels in your games, we're going to slap you with a lawsuit because squirrels are ours. It's stupid.
This is what lawsuits are for. You can file. Actually, there's two ways to do it. One with a lawsuit, and another way to the patent court or whatever it's called.
Yeah, but then you have to market the freaking lawsuit to get it to work.
No.
I can't even get freaking people to like cancel freaking Wheel of Time season 4 for crying out loud.
You have to present, like, let's say someone patents the air, right? The air.
I've considered it just to piss off Nintendo.
Let's say for some reason that gets through the patent court. The patent.
It wouldn't take much because you can do anything in the patent court. The patent court doesn't care.
No, not the patent court. The patent office. Okay?
Patenting office, whatever.
Yeah, it's not a court. It's an office. It's literally.
Yes, but all the patents are upheld by judges.
No, they're not.
They are. Because if that patent goes to court, they say, yes, this is illegal. I understand this, and I'm going to tell these other people off because reasons.
Unless the other people present why it shouldn't be patented.
Yes, that's what the Power World's supposed to be. But Nintendo has a really high success rate of
hundreds
lawsuits.
Of cases every year where patents get overturned. Hundreds.
And yet patents still exist.
They should still exist.
Within reason, yes. They're not within reason. That's the problem.
Yeah, they are within reason because the system works.
No. I'm saying when people go for patenting, Nintendo patenting being able to glide while holding on to a bird, that's unreasonable.
You go into the patent court and you say, this is unreasonable and here's why, and get a patent court ruling. And if you want to elevate beyond that...
Why is Power World not doing that?
Because they probably want to make a deal, a settlement with Nintendo for money.
No. They made tons of money. They're trying not to get squashed by Nintendo. Nintendo attacked them, not the other way around.
You know what their lawyers do. Their lawyers could be incompetent.
Their lawyers literally came out and said, here's our plan.
No. They claim they put a plan out.
No, they literally came out and said, here's what we want to do.
Then they're stupid.
Well, no, because what they want to do is something you can't interrupt.
No, you should never, as a lawyer, put out to public what you're going to. Never.
Well, I mean, I didn't say they gave the details. I said they gave a plan. This is what we're...
Never let your opponent... Never tell the enemy lawyers what you're doing.
What are they going to do about something that they can't stop? They can't do anything.
They can't stop.
Well, by definition of what you're telling them. Or you could be telling them the thing that you're not going to actually be doing, and you could be sideswiping them by them preparing for the wrong thing. There's a lot of ways to do it. But
you go into the court and you follow the process. You deposition, do motions.
Yeah, they're arguing things about the patent coming in afterwards, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is Pokemon didn't have the original patent to begin with. It was like Dragon Quest or something. Like, Dragon Quest had the mechanics and stuff before Pokemon tried to
So this is an issue that's probably going to take 5 to 10 years to resolve in court.
Probably. But the thing is Power World can't afford that. Nintendo can.
We don't know that.
We do.
We don't know that there's a big financial backer behind them in secret.
We do.
No, you don't.
Because they're a single small entity versus a massive entity.
There may be a big money treasurer, a banker behind him saying...
There's no banker willing to throw that money. No bankers do that.
You have no idea.
I know bankers. Bankers do not part with their money freely. That's not how that works.
Literally, bankers and capitalists. Before they all died, I have hundreds of these people in my family.
Yeah, but
what the mob doing?
They might use their own personal money. They're not using a bank money. They're not going into a bank and saying, "Yeah, I'll give you a loan for this much money. You
No,
can
no,
use it however you want to."
that's a different set of banks. Investment bankers are a different set of banks than
Well,
banks.
investors are one thing, sure, but I
No,
don't know
there
any
are things called
investors who can
investment banks.
out-invest Nintendo.
There are things called investment banks, which have nothing to do with your personal bank account. The whole other set of banks, and they're capitalists who take them like if you put your money in an investment bank, you're paying the capitalists who run it to invest in stuff. Okay.
Well, sure, it's an investment firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those people, we don't know if there's someone behind Paleo World or whatever.
Paleo World?
No, it's Pal World, whatever it's fucking called.
Paleo World? No, it's
We have
Pal
no
World.
idea. We have no
Well, we
idea
don't.
what's going
Yeah,
on.
I agree. We don't. But I also know there are very few people who are large enough to take on Nintendo
There are tons of people
that are in the same field that find it a good investment to be in what seems to be a
There are at
95%
least
against them
100
option.
100 American investment companies that can blow Nintendo out of the water.
Sure, but why would they think that's going to be a good investment for them?
We don't know either way.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not seeing any type of that kind of
Because
backing.
it's not going to be in public.
What's not going to be public?
The information that we're talking about is not going to be in public.
Sure,
But
I'm
at
saying
best-
I
At best, if you
from
dive into the depths of the financial papers, you might see obscure reference to, Bob Smith Investment Systems had a meeting with Joe Friday from Omega Corporation.
remind me never to
happened-
hire you to name people because you're terrible.
who Omega Corporation just and you happen to Omega Corporation happens to be the company that handles the human resources for Pal World.
Paleo. I love how you keep calling it
Whatever.
Paleo. It's Pal World.
Well,
My point is that the position I am taking is a reasonable one based on the information we have. The one you're taking is what I would call a hopeful position.
no, I'm not taking
Ideally,
the whole
yeah,
position.
I want them
I'm
to
a
have,
pragmatist, okay?
but pragmatism is not what you're positioning yourself for.
Yes, it is.
No,
Because I know the money's at play, and if the game is successful,
money
the
could be
money
at play. Yes, we have no evidence of it.
Again,
It could
we
be,
know the money,
but
we
no
know the money.
evidence. I'm
There's only
saying
200
without the evidence, the position I am making is of a reasonable position.
And then if the game fails, the game fails.
I don't think it'll fail. They'll just be forced to change a lot of stuff and then pay out a lot of
I'm
money.
not going to lose sleep over it. There's 100.
I am, because Pokemon needs to fail. Nintendo needs to fail because Nintendo thinks they're too big to fail, and they need to be shown that they're not. They're the Goliath. Power World's the David. It's
And
that
if
simple.
that happened,
It
again,
needs to happen for the
there are literally
for the industry
thousands-
to heal. We need this to happen. Nintendo needs to get taken down a notch. They need to realize just because you can make money doesn't mean the way you're doing it's the right way to do it. That's what they need to learn. We want to give them our money. We have been begging.
The only right
for
way to make
all-
money is the legal way. As long as it's legal, I don't care.
So if it's legal but unethical, you don't care?
Pretty much.
Ooh, you sound like a communist.
I mean,
That's the
I care
communist
about-
perspective.
I care about the ethics and will endeavor to change law to align with ethics. But if it's currently,
I don't
legal
care
to
about
do so-
legality because legality is literally at the whims of the masses. Whatever the masses feel like they want to.
No, it's not.
No, it is because whatever the masses want, they vote in the people who make the laws that change to whatever they want. Democracy is a dime a dozen, and the
United
laws
States
can
is
be
not
changed.
democracy.
Huh?
The United States is not a democracy.
What isn't?
It's a constitutional republic.
I know. I'm saying from the perspective of people who believe in democracy, which is most of them, unfortunately, the idea that we are a democracy is the most commonly held belief, despite us obviously being a constitutional republic, the most highest belief because we can vote, therefore we must be democracy, rather than the
Yeah.
democracy of voting being a small percentage of the actual
the
system.
fact that we vote, the fact that people vote does not change the fact that the laws are not implemented via democracy.
Well, I'm saying if you can vote a person into Congress, and everybody who gets voted in for Congress does what exactly their constituents tell them to do, which is change this law to be an unethical thing to become legal,
You know
I
that,
don't care about the legality.
We do know that, like even if in the same political party, congressmen wildly disagree on shit. right?
Sure. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm not saying the reality would be very difficult to pull that off.
Yeah.
Of course it would be. But I'm saying it's technically possible in our system. It's difficult to do, but it's possible. I don't agree that it's the way it should be done. I don't think people who have no freaking stake in anything should be right to vote on that topic because they don't have anything to lose. Where the people who do have all the stakes do have something to lose.
Everyone in the United States, we all have one stake in common, so to speak. But
we
that
have
being
we're
said,
not
I'm
gay
running
yet.
out of time.
Sure. Well, we have one last section that's
Let's
tied
go,
into the
let's
last
go
one.
into it fast. I have maybe 10 minutes. I can before the pain goes too much.
I don't know if you heard of this. It's pretty new. Randy Pitchford. You know who that is?
No.
He's the guy who runs Gearbox 2K.
Okay.
So he's the guy who makes Borderlands. So a fan says, Randy, don't sell Borderlands 4 for $80. Randy Pitchford, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. So here's
What?
yeah. Here's the thing. Randy, this game better not be $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't going to pay $80 and feed this notion of constant increase of the price tag. You are the CEO. You have some say with the price when it comes to your publisher. Now, I will agree that there's a lot you can't do when there's a publisher involved, but there is some weight you have. You might put forth you don't want it to be $80. The publisher can overrule you, but then you clarify that that was the publisher who did the rule, not you. But,
Okay.
But you don't say, I'm going to make this $80, because guess what happens? Not my call. Well, it might be. Did you actually talk to the publisher? If you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage in an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen.
That's the last one?
Yes, that's just those. That's the interaction.
So I'll only give. I don't know how much longer I can sit without the pain, but
Sure.
So the initial pricing for games is they had to recoup the investment. Okay.
Well, it was harder to get into the entire situation to begin with, and it was a massive investment because there was no guarantee it was going to be a success. Blah 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 blah. They made a lot of physical product. Blah 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 blah. Now we're doing a lot of digital product, which doesn't cost that much to do.
There are companies that do like charge less for games as they go on. Like Warcraft, you can buy all the previous expansions for like one fee now. Every time you put a new one out, you'll have the game up to the 2 expansions previous, the previous expansion at a discount, and the new game at the max price, $80 or whatever it is.
Sure.
And
pretty practical.
They're reasonable. Like you don't ever have to play those. Like you could have tons of fun in World of Warcraft without buying the last 2 expansions. There's so much content in there.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing for Star Wars: The Old Republic. Is if you buy a $15 month subscription, you unlock all the prior subscriptions or all the prior expansions in one go. So you're paying $15 to get all the content.
But there's a lot of so I don't have any problem with games up front being $60 or $80. I do have a problem when.
Well, I do, because the games aren't valued at $8. Now, here's the thing. There's 2 ways to look at this. One, it's not valuable in terms of the overall, and it's not valuable on a personal level. So on a personal level, I don't think, ever since Borderlands 3, and technically to some extent the stuff after 2, anything after 2, more or less, was not valued at $80. I would argue not even valued at $60.
Okay.
But that's a different story.
Okay. The reason for that price, the initial one, is they have to recoup the cost of the probably thousands of people that are involved in that.
Sure, but that's a problem that they have overstaffed, and they did
There's no
business
overstaffing.
budgeting. There is overstaffing.
In a big corporation, you have to have. People have to have legally on site in corporations.
If you can
now.
fire 12,000 employees and still be above 70% of your freaking company, you have too many employees. That's bloat.
No, they literally in corporations hire people. Okay, so you'll like for example in healthcare. Give you a healthcare example. We know that we'll get government grants that last for 5 years, so we'll hire 1,000 people to run those government grants, right? And then we know we're going to fire all those people in 5 years, right? And so we'll fire them, and then we'll report we cut costs and savings by firing people we knew we were going to lay off 5 years ago. We wouldn't say it that way, but that's what you do.
Sure.
A lot of those.
What I'm saying is you would not hire that many people anyway if your intention is to keep a low budget to make a lot more profit.
Those people are hired for short term. So when they're laying,
some of them probably sure, but you should be hiring 17,000 employees anyway.
Most of those 17,000 people are you're going to be laying them off in 3 or 4 years because they're only there to build a new building or
sure, but that's still 17,000 you're paying for 5 years.
Because they did what they were supposed to do for 5 years.
Okay, yes, but you're not understanding that. your budget does not change because magical people show up.
Yes, it does.
Not in the gaming industry. There are no
Yes,
video
in the
game.
gaming industry.
No. If it takes 500 to 1,500 people to make a quadruple A game, you don't hire 20,000 people to make said game.
Who's feeding those people? Who's cleaning their offices? Who's providing security for their workplaces?
I'm not even talking about the additional staff. I'm talking explicitly devs.
No,
the
no,
people
I'm
building the
talking
game world.
That $80 ticket has to go to recoup all those costs, not just the developers.
Yeah. Do you know how many? Okay. The space required to maintain 17,000 people, I believe this is Ubisoft I'm referencing, that volume of people, the space volume that you need for that is not the same as the space volume for 1,500 people. Can we agree on this?
Well, you'll have
17,000 people cannot fit in a 1,500 people location.
Well, they'll have several buildings they've rented for something.
Sure,
you know.
but that's upping your costs. Now you're upping your costs to have those people there that are going
Or
to increase your
doing work
budget.
for you that is limited
but
term.
most games don't need more than a couple hundred, if maybe capped out at 2,000. You have no logical reason to have 17,000 people working.
The gaming corporations work like other corporations. Okay, you have
Yes,
not been
inefficiently. My point.
Inefficient is part of the system.
No, it's not. You can make a corporation operate without being inefficient.
No,
you just not being. You have to not be retarded.
It's inherently inefficient. Inherently.
To be fair, I prefer the in-between of a personally owned corporation where the corporation is not run by shareholders. It's only run by the monarchy.
Small versus large. Small businesses can be efficient. Large businesses are inherently inefficient.
I'm saying that a company like Larian Studios can use a couple hundred people to make Baldur's Gate 3, and then a company like Ubisoft can make a game like freaking Assassin's Creed Shadows and have 17,000 people working for them.
Who owns
Which
Larian
one
Studios?
made the freaking money?
Who owns Larian Studios?
Nobody owns Larian as far as I'm aware. It's just the guy who runs the studio.
Then they farm out thousands of people worth of work.
No. There's only 300 people.
Who does their HR stuff?
I don't know.
If they only have 300 people, they're farming
No.
HR.
When I'm talking 300, I'm not talking 300 employees. I'm talking 300 devs.
How do you pay them?
The same way everybody else gets paid, in the rears.
With a HR department that issues paychecks, correct?
Sure, but you don't need that many people to do that. Like
to run an HR department,
one HR person can handle 300 people rather easily.
No, you can't. No, impossible.
Yeah, we have 2 HR people at our place.
That two, and who does the taxes?
I would assume the accountants of the international corporation I work for.
No. The people who have to do the taxes for payroll have to be as part of the HR department.
Then somebody in HR, but how many accountants do you need?
For 300 people, you probably need 10 or 12 of them.
Why?
You ever tell how much tax stuff goes on with 300
I have
people?
a personal friend of mine who's a tax guy, and he can do my taxes in like 30 minutes. You're telling me in a year? In a year, these guys cannot come up with... They have to have 10 people do it?
When you take in the workman's comp, there's so much stuff.
I'm not saying there's stuff there's not stuff involved, but I'm saying just the devs. Just the devs. 300 versus tens of thousands.
The money goes to everyone who has to get paid from there.
But the cleaning crew for 17,000 is massively larger than that of a 300.
And that's
not even comparable.
Is doing other work for the company.
Who is?
You see, these 17,000 people are doing other work for the company.
The 17,000 people are just the developers. They only work on the game. They do not clean windows. They don't scrub toilets. They don't vacuum the carpets if they have any. They don't do any of the other things. They only develop games.
Well, maybe it's needed.
That's literally never been done until they came out with this type of stuff.
Again.
So these big companies are making these things like allegedly
they're adopting the same
Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposed to be...
This has got to be my last bit here.
Sure. Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposed to be over $1 billion to make it, but they'll probably make that 10 times over because of what they're doing.
Are adopting the same modeling for workers that engineering and software development firms are, where you have tens of thousands of programmers to make like one app. And then what happens?
The app sucks too,
and
then they don't make money.
When the version of the app comes out, you laid 15,000 of them off until you work on
Sure.
next version.
I'm not saying
in
that
a
they
year.
don't, but I'm saying that if you hire those people to work on said thing, it's still in your budget. You still lose hundreds of millions of dollars to make
It's not a
said thing.
loss if you need them to do the work.
It is a loss if you don't make profits that make up for it.
Well, that's a different issue.
No, that's the issue. You need to make the money, but you by default of hiring 17,000 people
What if
when you only need
can't make the
300.
game without the 17,000 people?
There's no world in which that is a true statement.
Apparently, it's true for these companies.
Because they're inefficient and stupid, and they fired the good talent to
Well,
hire young talent.
Why aren't you running a business the proper way?
I don't have a business, unfortunately. I want to.
Well,
It costs
there's
money.
the problem right there.
I don't have the money because
you're
I have to
stating-
pay myself.
Well,
And I
you are
have
not-
too many people.
well,
I
you
have
are
too
not
many employees for
inherently
one
wrong.
business.
Well, you're not inherently on some stuff. I've worked in corporations for 20 plus years now. Okay?
Sure.
And
most corporations are terrible at money.
no, they're inefficient. They're inefficient by design.
That's terrible.
And the
They're
reason
not,
they're
you don't
inefficient,
design a company to be inefficient.
but legally they're inefficient. Okay.
I don't know what that means, but
Big
okay.
businesses are designed to be inefficient legally so that the whole thing doesn't collapse and cause 10,000 people to lose their job in 1 week.
Well, they don't care because they're going to just fire them at the end of the 5 years anyway.
No, the temp employees get fired. The permanent employees keep going on.
Yeah.
Do you know any temp software workers I worked with in 20-something years at my company before they eventually
I
laid me
have
off?
no idea, but I also know
Probably
lots of
40
software
Probably
developers.
40 or 50 that I can name that I just still have contacts on. I would say with the projects, with the temp workers who, like there was a woman named Donna who was a temp worker with our company for 6 years.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's just one person. We
Yeah.
had we routinely. To my last known time, which would be like September when I was talking with someone. I think we employed 20,000 software people, engineers, whatever, that were temporary workers on short-term projects.
Sure. That doesn't change the fact that that's not necessary in every instance. If you have 20,000 people working on a single app and that app can be made with 500 people, that's called bloat.
Again, who could say to me if you can't make it with 500
Who
people?
can say? Well, we know because I've seen games with less devs do better than the games that have more devs. It's a fact. You cannot get around it. Nobody can get around it.
The point I'm making is those companies don't agree with you, and they still exist.
The companies are also losing millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't care if they don't agree with me. They're still wrong.
They're not because they continue to exist.
Yes, but some are big enough where they can continue to exist even losing hundreds of millions of dollars. That's easy to do. If I'm a trillionaire and I lose $100 million, whoopee-doo, I still got tons of more money.
You know that for every game that's successful, there are at least 10 they produced that aren't?
Possibly. I don't think every company follows that exact same pattern, but I'm sure some
do.
do.
It's a pretty exact pattern.
I know, but there's also some companies that aren't big enough to do that, but they can still make more money.
I was talking industry in general.
Oh, I know, but most of the industry now is AA. Or single A for that matter. They're the ones making profit.
It's like 9 o'clock. I got to call it.
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
We'll discuss it. I got to call it.
Yeah, let's go. We'll wrap-a-roni up. But yes.
I got to do this fast.
Sure.
The pain's spiking.
Matt, what are you doing?
Tomorrow, Wednesday, is overbooked, talking about wrestling.
It's on Wednesday.
And Thursday, Roman Empire, we're doing Legion, the 2010 Angel movie.
Which you'll have to go back in time to go see that. So, in other words, just if you ever see this, just assume Wednesday wrestling, Thursday Roman on the Reign. Does that sound about right, good sir?
Yeah.
All right.
Later.
Thank you, good sir. Welcome to the Echo Chamber, ladies and gentlemen, where all we do is agree on everything and never disagree on anything. And I may have the wrong opinions. I don't know. I just try my best to run with the information I have at my fingertips, and I can run with what I can run with. But if somebody like... Sorry, wrong hand. Finger this way. Baldur's Gate 3. It's the Steam edition, if anybody's wondering. Physical copy. If they're making a fantastic game like Baldur's Gate 3, which everybody who plays it, except the anti-woke, anti-goners, those guys, if everybody thinks that it's a fantastic game because it lets you do what you want to do and it's fun and you can make all your paths however you want to, and they just did like 6 to 8 years worth of work on that game. If that's making buco profit, and somebody else comes out, hires a trillion more employees than they do, and they're like, "Hey, we made profit. We made $10." It does. Ultimately speaking, this small little company made a better product, typically speaking, but they also actually made profit, like good profit, which is a good thing. And I'm looking forward to Larian making much better product and hoping that they never go the way of CD Projekt Red, because that ended horribly, as well as the company that broke off of CD Projekt Red and went off to make Blood of Dawnwalker, which is my most anticipated game, which I don't know if it's coming out this year or if it's coming out next year. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. Whichever it might be, I am looking forward to personally being able to see whatever, they come out with, and hoping it's just phenomenal, because they made a good game, Witcher 3, and whoever worked on Witcher 2 and Witcher 1, if they're still with them in that time period. I think they'll do phenomenal. I think big companies like Ubisoft, Bungie, EA, Activision Blizzard, yada, 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 just because you're big doesn't mean you're intelligent. And usually if you're a corporation, you're not intelligent. That's just by definition a rule, and it's yet to be disproven. Even the good corporations are highly inefficient and make a lot of mistakes that cost them a lot of money, and ultimately speaking, they could do better. They just don't, because usually executives or suits or ties, whatever you want to call them, are just, they're not good at understanding their customer base. They're not good at understanding, like, they hire marketing companies that tell them literally whatever they want to tell them, because all the activism comes from a marketing department. The marketing department decides for whatever reason that they want this to be in the game, so they go and they whisper all these things that the execs like, sure, that sounds great, here's a couple $100 million, make that game, yeah. And then guess what? We get a game that isn't made for gamers, because marketing isn't for gamers, marketing is for marketing. There's a difference between marketing and making a game for gamers. And again, this has happened to Xbox. The 360 came out, they were making it for gamers. When the Xbox One came out, they were making it for entertainment systems. They lost the plot. And anybody who is familiar with this kind of gaming history, losing the plot loses you money, typically. There are chances where it could make money. And again, I'm not going to begrudge anybody from making money. Like, yes, I want you to succeed, because if you succeed, I can probably get more of your stuff. And I like that. But if you make a bad product, you're going to probably suffer for that, because you'll lose fans, you'll lose the trust and the goodwill of whoever your clientele is, aka the consumers. And also, you could possibly harm more of the industry by making everybody else of other companies, like fans of other companies, also put on kind of a cautious alert, where they're not necessarily going to show up for you. Because, like, for example, pre-ordering used to be big, because pre-ordering meant you got goodies and you could support the devs you cared about and all this cool fun stuff. But then we came to the point where it stopped being that. It stopped being, support the developers. What happened is somebody came along and took advantage of everybody else and said, hey, I'll give you this fancy pre-order. And then they just did a crap game. And then they just didn't finish their game. Early access probably had a lot to do with this, in terms of on the Steam side of things, which eventually, because early access was a thing, then PlayStation and Xbox and other things started doing that as well. But ultimately speaking, it wasn't Steam's fault. Steam didn't tell anybody to make a bad game. Steam didn't tell anybody to do anything that they shouldn't have done. What happened was on the people who were intending to be dishonest, and they were dishonest, I want to say to a fault, but it was literally their fault. They were dishonest, so I can't even say that per se. Needless to say, it's a shame, but that's the way the world works. We all learn, we get burned too many times, and then we stop supporting people that once were great. CD Projekt Red, RIP. Or I should say, Requiesce Pace. But yes, we don't want that. We don't want to lose the goodwill, or we don't want to lose what goodwill we have towards the company because we want the company to make good decisions. But if all the good decisions are being made by small companies that are trying to work their best to do their best for us to motivate like us to get their product, they're working at it. But the big wigs executives are like, don't just buy it anyway because they're just a bunch of dumb gamers. They don't know what they're doing. That's what we don't appreciate. We don't like being talked down to. We don't like being treated poorly. We want to be valued, but we're not being valued. And it's a problem. It's a severe problem. What we need is a reimagining. We need a shuffling of corporations, a shuffling of anything and everything that has to do with this nonsense, because ultimately speaking, we need to go back to where the gaming is about gamers, and it's about games, and it's about the experience we can get out of it as gamers. So when we can enjoy our games again, when we can enjoy being out there and just, we can be gamers, not consumers. That's where everything gets kind of aligned back to where it is. So if I ever get the ability to make my own gaming company, and I'm going to pour my heart and soul into whatever game I'm making, but I'm also going to do it where I can actually change the gaming industry, because I actually care about the gaming industry. I care about gamers, whether they agree with me politically or not. I care about, or even apolitically, I don't care. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you look like, what kind of ice cream you like. I don't care about any of your personal preferences from the perspective of whether they are exact copies of mine. I don't. What I do care about is whether or not you can have fun playing a game that I produce. It's literally that simple. It's not a complicated thing. So, I mean, ultimately speaking, let's just make something that we would play so that you can play it. That's how I would make it. But I also really value details. I value all the fun stuff. I'd want to hire actual good writers, good artists, good musicians, good designers, all the things that come into play. And I want the best product possible, and I want to make it as good as possible, because if I can make it good for a correct budget, unlike Ubisoft or EA or Activision Blizzard or Bungie or whoever is making these games for ridiculous amounts of money, Rockstar, I want to make the game for as affordable as possible for only a couple million, and then let's go make 500 million off of it. Make 500 million, then I can make another game and maybe another game simultaneously at the same time. I can pay everybody up front. We're in good shape, and we can grow and become organic. We can bring back physical media. You want it digitally? I'll give it to you digitally, but we'll still have physical media you can buy. Might not be able to buy it at like a Walmart, because getting a Walmart to stock things is virtually impossible now, but we can ship it to you. I mean, that's what freaking Baldur's Gate 3 did. You can buy from Larian directly to get the physical copy of it. It comes, this Steam version. So the Steam version comes with the Steam key, so I can play it on my Steam, but it also comes with a disc, which has its own unique custom-made launcher on it. And I'm kind of simping really hard for Larian Studios right now. By the way, Divinity 2 Original Sin, phenomenal soundtrack and game. All the Divinity games have been really, really freaking good, and they've done it quite a bit. But getting those games out there and having the complete amazing experience with physical media, having soundtracks, posters, instructions, stickers, whatever there might be. There are going to be tons of things that you could get with one. That's what I want people to enjoy again, because I know people enjoy physical media despite the normies coming in and saying, I get everything digitally. And then when that gets pulled out from underneath them and they lose all their stuff, they're going to be crying about it. And we're going to be like, yeah, we have physical media for that. So I would also, as a gaming company, advocate that the United States be anti-bricking from a company perspective. If Nintendo gets you a freaking Switch or a Switch 2, they can't brick it because you have your own privacy and what you do with your product that you purchased, not leased, not licensed. I mean, you technically license with the purchase, but you're licensing the access of the use of a name. You're not accessing or licensing the game itself. You're purchasing the game itself. That's the thing that matters. But all this to say, I probably will not ever actually be able to make my dream come true, mostly because I am not made of money. But if I ever do become made of money, that's a big goal for me. It's my biggest goal as far as I'm aware. So there you go. Throw that on the table for you. Hopefully one day it'll become reality. I'll probably be dead before that becomes a thing. But I digress. Sorry, drainage is still coming. But yeah, out of all the topics, they're all good topics to talk about. Some of them people care less about than others. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to care about things you don't want to care about. But I will say thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. You are appreciated. Your support matters to me, and I'm sure to the rest of the Council of the Light, and everybody else who involves themselves with the questioners. And one day we can probably get bigger, be nice, but I just want to make sure that everybody has a good time and enjoys being here to begin with. So if you like what we're doing, give us a like, thumbs up, thumbs down, dislike, whatever the case might be. Leave a comment that's positive, leave a comment that's not positive, negative, whatever the word is. And if you enjoy seeing me blunder or enjoy me just rambling on and you want to support, share the videos with people you think would enjoy long form content, or if we get a couple short term content, or if you watch one of the gaming streams, live streams I do, or if I have a chill stream that pops up randomly and you want to participate and you want to chat with me directly through that, love to have you. But thank you all for being here. And as I did forget at the beginning, because we kind of were jumping in really quickly, if you'd like to support the community of gaming or the culture war in general, and you want to support companies that support us, they don't support me, but they support other companies like Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic and stuff. I guess they're not companies, channels, but yeah. You can support things like MetaPC, code 911 or 911 199. Wow, I'm bad. With code 199, there we go. I can say names or not names, things. I'm tired. I apologize. That'll get you some discount. Doesn't help me, but it does help other people. So hopefully that will help you help other people. Or also, if you want to do mods, I believe it's DEG Mods is the name. They are not like Nexus Mods and trying to censor you every little detail and everything. So that's somebody you can support, that I would support, because they're not going to just block mods. So get your mods, mod your games how you want to. Just don't cheat in a multiplayer game. That's kind of a dick move. But knock yourself out on single player, because nobody's going to be disappointed except for you if you ruin your experience. But it might not ruin your experience. It might enrich your experience. Who knows? Do what you want to do. It's fun. So thanks, everybody. I will try not to flub as hard next time, but I make no promises. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.